weekend and
I appreciate it.
some stuff done, but yeah.
At this time, we'll call to order the regular city council meeting on April 23rd, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Each and every one of us.
Let the roll call show that everyone is present. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes from March 28th, 2018.
I'll move the minutes.
I'll second them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We'll now look to approve the minutes from April 9th, 2018. Councilmember Kennedy.
Okay, on page 8, Lisa, under the heading under budget, we have Mr. Kramer's name spelled in two different ways, and actually in the third document spelled a third way, so I'm not really sure how his name is spelled. But
I will find out.
okay. The other one is about two-thirds of the way down in that paragraph under budget. We have the word, Councilmember Kurtzwell stated that she doesn't know why that would be relevant. I believe the word would be relevant in that one. And on the very last page, page 10 for the April 9th minutes, last paragraph, you have recorded my council comments. It states that she then thanked Donna and Kathy. It should be he. That's all I had for that one. Thank you.
I got one.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
April 9th, on page 3, towards the bottom where I spoke regarding Providence Clinic and 110 Detroit Street, and I stated Providence is now called Ascension. It's supposed to be spelled with an A, not an E. Okay, Ascension. And
I think it's actually ACC.
okay, there's another, I got something else, okay? I think this is very important. Okay, on page 7, okay, when I made my motion regarding the tree removal, okay, on page 8, okay, I'm sure nobody heard what I was saying at the very end, okay? I said, I moved to withdraw my motion, but nobody heard me, okay? And I think that should be included in there. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm on page 9, council comments, and that would be the third paragraph. In the first line, Councilmember Kurtzwell stated to the mayor she will be doing some additional research. And at the end of the sentence that says Robert's Rules of Order, I then said I will be discussing that issue with some other individuals. And if you go further down into that paragraph, fourth line from the bottom, it's Beckway Doors, B-E-C-K. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Kibble.
Okay, page 4, probably about 7 lines down. I've typed this for you, Lisa, so you can just take it right off there. The okay, Attorney Wilhelm stated the idea is to hit upon criteria that may come up in a discussion with a new owner, such, and we need to add as, such as where will they get the money to run the business. Down about 7 lines. He thinks you need to know who you're going to give a license, add to with just one O, not two TOO. Further, Councilmember Parisian asked if a business owner just paid the fee to the state of Michigan, but then they pay the fees to the city, and the city says no, can the state allow it anyway? That question was just laid hanging in there, and Attorney Wilhelm responded, if you don't approve it, the state will not approve a new on-premise license. Okay, page 5. This is towards the bottom. Councilman Kivel stated there should be a timeline for when the applicant can expect not on, approval or add a rejection. He then stated he can't imagine the changes the witches have mentioned would have been met with any resistance. They all seemed perfectly logical, and he doesn't understand why there would have been any issues with council approving their changes. On page 9. This is like halfway into that first block. It says, Councilman Kivel stated this has been distorted, not discouraged, to the point of unrecognizability. He stated when Bob Martin decided to start taking the leaves from the city and to the park rather than dump them at Stone Depot, that was to save money. And the name of the company in that next line is Spurt, and it's with a U, not an I. Okay, so as I said, I'll give this to you. That's all I had. Thank you. I'll move the minutes as amended if nobody's got anything else.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We'll move on to approve the minutes from April 11th, 2018. Councilmember Kennedy?
Okay, Lisa, on the first page, last paragraph, 2 instances there, 5th line from the top, 5th line up from the bottom. We have the word formerly. The word should be formally in both instances. On the second page, 3rd line down, we have the word, this overall approach will help us in the matter our council meetings are handled. That word should be manner. And then about a dozen lines down, it says, Councilmember Kivel stated that he thinks when someone is making their comments, you will be able to discern where they are in their comments.
Oh, yeah.
The word should be discern.
Thank you. I had that one, and I don't know where I did those minutes.
That's all I have.
Anyone else with anything on the April 11th minutes?
I move the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Last one, folks. We're looking to approve the minutes from the April 16th, 2018 meeting. Councilmember Kennedy.
Okay, on page 3, that second paragraph down, Lisa, that's where we have Mr. Kramer's name. It's now spelled with a C. And then on page 4, the sentence begins, he further stated that when it comes to a fixed charge, the low-end users pay more, the high-end users pay more. That second more should be less. The high-end users pay less. The low-end user pays more. And that's all I had.
Anyone else have anything to add on the April 16 minutes?
I'll move the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Excellent, all right. Approval of the minutes, which we have none this evening.
Bills, you mean?
Oh, yeah, geez.
Sorry.
Bills.
Yeah, thank you. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Wilhelm.
I would ask council to consider adding a new business item between Roman numerals 6 and 7. could identify as new business 9. Consider approval of a separation agreement between the City of South Lyon and Lynn Ladner.
9.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Are we deleting item number 6, the closed session?
That's not, that's really up to the council.
Well, the only comment that I would make on it with respect to the closed session is that it adds clarity when you say that we're going into a closed session for attorney-client privilege communication, what is the date of that communication? So that there's a reference point as to the content of the privileged information and the subject matter then that's discussed in the closed meeting. I assume it's the communication dated April 22nd?
Yes, but it would also include the earlier, I think there's one from late March as well, that covers the same topic.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Chief.
along those same lines, I would ask that council add a new business, number 10. I just got the information today that it would be appropriate to distribute the packet I did on the 3 executive search companies. I would request that council add new business item number 10 to consider selection of an executive search company to conduct a search for a city manager and to direct the interim manager to make contact with the company of council's choice.
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Second?
All in favor?
No, hold on, is that
sorry.
with the closed session or no? Because I think we should have that, but if 9 is the approval part, then it's kind of moot.
Mr. Willem.
I took it to be that closed session language in item 6 would be clarified with the date of the communication, being April 22, 2018.
Okay.
You had made mention of a Roman numeral, though. So were you talking about new business 9, or were you talking about after the closed session?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Willem.
I believe Councilmember Kurtzweil was discussing Capital Roman 6 to add clarity, adding a date to the attorney-client privilege communication.
Correct?
And then I was, for purposes of the order of business, adding new business item number 9 following the closed session between Romans 6 and 7.
Ms. Mayor?
Okay.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Then I'd like to amend the agenda that number 6 remains, and following Roman numeral number 6 on the agenda is now, I would put that under, I mean, you can call it 9 if you want, number 9 after the closed session and number 10 after the closed session. Is
Yeah.
that pretty much?
Correct.
Okay. I move to amend the agenda.
Oh.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? At this time, we'd welcome public comment. Please state your name and address.
Linda Ross, 373 Harvard Avenue. I am president of the South Lyon Historical Society. And first, I would like to thank everyone who came out last Tuesday night for our program on Do You Remember Hudson's? We had a full house. We had a wonderful evening of sharing memories of downtown Detroit, Hudson store, and everyone enjoyed the pictures and memorabilia that our speaker, Michael Hauser from the Michigan Opera Theater came and brought with him. So we had a very enjoyable evening, and I thank everyone for coming out last week. I have 2 questions for the council or for everyone here. How many do not know about the Historical Society or the Historical Village? Okay. My next question, and I don't really need an answer, but I was wondering why when City Council or whoever approves another group's event at the village, that we, out of respect and consideration, are not notified so that we can put it on our calendar so that we can avoid conflicts. A simple phone call to me to get it on our calendar would avoid any problems that we would have. I also want to remind you that the city does have a wedding coordinator that books weddings at the chapel. And when she has a wedding scheduled, she cannot cancel that wedding. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Allen. I live at 11672 Crooked Lane. I'm out here. I have some property that is adjacent. It's 501 McMunn. It's adjacent to the bike path and on the north side, and on the east side, the sled hill. And anyways, I'm getting old. I'm entering my golden years, and it's an investment property. I have other properties in in South Lyon and other places, but this place I thought has a great asset to the city. They might be interested in buying it. A number of reasons. I wrote them all in here. I've got some copies, so I'm trying to keep within a 2-minute frame here. And you can look it over, and I'm probably talking to the wrong department, but at least this is public record. The council knows about it. This property is available, and I don't know, you don't have budgets to buy property, or you do or you don't. I'm willing to go on the land contract. It's rental property. It's got, right now, currently, got long-term tenants. Ed Brown was a previous one. I rent out 4 garages there. It's got a 4-car garage behind. Ed Brown, the Brown Root Beer, he was a tenant for 13 years for a couple of the garages. I got a tenant there that's 22, that's been there for 22. So even if you choose to demolish the place, it's no big deal. But if you want to keep it for a while for income, technically I'm saying I'm willing to offer a land contract on it. So if you, the council, the mayor, can give this envelopes out to whoever's interested. I'd like the council to take a look at it, and that'd be about it.
Thank you very much.
I went on Facebook and watched the council meeting. There was only 6 people here, so I only made 6 copies. I'll give it to the boss. He sees who gets the 6.
Thank you.
That's funny. Good stuff.
Ken Hamblin, 68646 6 Mile Road, Northville, Michigan. I'm just curious, the council had asked that the volunteer park would be put on the agenda, and I don't see it here unless it falls under number 7. About Fireman Volunteer Park again, if we're not going to do the Leaf.
Just a moment. Chief, I talked to you a little bit about this earlier.
Yes, my recollection is that council asked me to investigate leaf pickup and disposal. That is number 7. There's information in the packet regarding cost and related issues to leaf pickup and disposal. Certainly that involves volunteer park.
Okay. So I think we're going to allow some leeway on that topic when we get there. It doesn't look like it's stated that clearly in that, but
correct.
We're going to be able to discuss that.
Well, the biggest thing is my time's getting short now.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Mayor, we've discussed a couple of things back and forth. I don't know if this is the time frame you wanted me to present our question or not.
Well, no, go ahead. Yeah, this involves the bike
bridge.
path?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
go ahead,
okay.
because that way we can get the information out to everyone, and we'll get you in
Good.
touch with people that you need to talk to.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, my name is David Rudd, and I'm the president of the Homeowner Association for Maple Creek area, the Homeowner Association. And I have with me tonight a couple of members of our board, our treasurer, Janet, sitting here, and one of our members, Joe Baylock. Our sub is about 38 homes, and it's kind of divided by a little wetland that runs from the volunteer park area, kind of snakes through, and it ends up kind of crossing over 9 Mile at the intersection of 9 Mile Road and Dixboro Road. 2 years ago, the city identified several walking areas that needed attention, part of the Safe Routes initiative. I don't know if you remember that. One of those areas included the bridge that runs across the wetland area that divides our sub into the intersection of 9 Mile and Dixboro Road. That bridge was in need of repair then, and it's not gotten any better. It's certainly much worse now. We're very concerned about the condition of this public access bridge since it's so close to our homes and our kids actually use it to walk to school. The bridge is heaved up to the extent that it's become very unsafe to walk, specifically in inclement weather, because of the dips and rises and trails off into certain areas. Once you lose footing, it's a slippery slope off into the water. So actually, we had one of the members of our homeowner association, one of their daughters, actually was driving her bicycle across it, and because of the lack of traction, slid and hurt herself a little bit. Nothing bad, but it still kind of gives an extent of what could happen if the bridge is not taken care of. And that's what we're looking to talk about. And we're very much aware that the cost to fix a bridge like this is not only expensive but very complex. Matter of fact, we've been seeking contractors to come at least give us a bid on what it would take to fix that. And with that, only one has given us a comprehensive bid on what it would take to level this bridge, considering the condition that it's in. The quote that they gave back for leveling the bridge was, and this was replacing several of the pilings, because apparently when the bridge was initially built, the pilings weren't driven down deep enough, and as the ground froze, it heaved up the pilings, and now we have a bridge that's a little bit dangerous. So the latest estimate we've got is about $20,000 to repair this bridge. It is replacing about 7 of these different piling sets and replacing it with steel pilings that are driven down about 12 to 14 foot. This is by, and I have some information to hand you in a few minutes, but this is by a company that actually works on seawalls, so this is kind of their specialty, working on things like this. We also looked at it, and we originally talked to them. I didn't include some of the boards because there are actually several boards that make up the guardrails and handrails that are also heaved up and are either they were laid wrong or they were never treated, and so they have heavy splinters rising up. If you're to try to walk down there at night and put your hand down, it could be very, very harmful. And we're very concerned about that because it's a nice area and people like to walk at night or in the early mornings. And if you do, it could be dangerous. So what I want to do is, Janet, if you don't mind, we have some things I'd like to hand out that kind of gives you a small packet of what we're talking about. Included some pictures of what we have that kind of gives you a little indication what the bridge looks like.
Thank you.
And then there's a quote from the company that we got to do the repair work and what they were looking at. And also in the latter pages, there's information about the Safe Routes initiative that was taken on a few years ago that outlines, I believe it's section number 7, you'll see the bridge is outlined and identified as one of those that needed repair. So what we're here tonight is here to propose kind of a partnership between our sub and the city to take care of the situation. We want to make the bridge safe, not only for our kids, but obviously any public access. So the quote, as we said, is very expensive. So it's around $20,000 to do this. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to, as the sub, we recognize being close to it, we want to take on as much of it as we can. But limited, only 38 homes, there's only so much we can come up with. We looked at the price being about $25,000. In doing so, if that's the case, then we'd be willing to go back to our homeowners and collect up to $10,000 of that to do the repair, which is about 40% of what it would take to make the repairs that we're looking at. We're looking to find out if the city can help come up with about $15,000 or 60% of that cost to take care of the situation. We're really not sure where to go to find out if a partnership like this is feasible, if the city is willing to do that, but we want to be a part of that partnership if at all possible. So whatever you can do to help us, we're just looking for some direction.
Certainly, I would say that we'll probably need a little bit of time to digest this, and then this would be something that we could probably get on the agenda at a later date. Yeah. It seems like it is a little bit time sensitive, though, so I would think maybe we could get it on there maybe next meeting. Okay. Does anyone have any problem with that? Yes, you do?
No,
yes. Okay, yes. Okay, sorry. No, okay. Yeah. So I thank you for coming out tonight, and the information is much appreciated so we can get the best grasp on what exactly is going on over there.
Are there any other questions by the council members?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the discussion of downtown. Mr. Donahue?
All right, again, you have a copy of last week's report, but just a couple quick items. There's been a lot going on with the building rehabs behind the scenes. I think you'll see that all play out in May and June. So getting those 6 buildings, the bulk of the work should be finished in June on all 6. Right now, the Promotions and Marketing Committee is going to meet on April 26th. It's a group of businesses with DDA board members that are going to be looking at all of the events that take place downtown over the course of a year, as well as all the events throughout the city, regardless of who holds them. So we can establish a calendar to coordinate around, including the depot.
That's a great idea.
And it helps us really plan to avoid conflict, if at all possible. And then we get that on the city's website. At that meeting, we're going to have a discussion of marketing and advertising opportunities to kind of fill the voids between events. Then also, we're coming up with a method of, and this will be presented to council in the near future, of how to identify all events in 4 types. Be an A, B, C, D plan. So A is a city or DDA event totally run or coordinated by the DDA and or the city. A B event would be a city or DDA are co-sponsors or partners. C, the city or the DDA are minimally involved with logistics only. And then D, the event is totally run by a community organization without any assistance by the DDA or the city. So we'll try to break that down into a spreadsheet, present that to council in the near future. One last item, a group of downtown businesses is going to be holding a ladies' night on May 11th. The major sponsors they've identified, but it's going to be a much smaller event, and then of course then in the fall the DDA will have its DDA-sponsored fall ladies' night out. So I think the posters have started to go up in the store fronts for May 11th.
Great.
Thanks, Bob.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bob.
At this point, we'll move on to new or old business. Consider second reading of rezoning 500 Stryker. The recommendation on this agenda note is to approve the second reading.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Wilhelm.
So this is the second reading of the ordinance, proposed ordinance to amend the zoning map for 500 Stryker. There is no change since the first reading. This is the second reading. I think, if I recall, Mr. Aventini from CIB Planning was here to address various issues and provided an additional memorandum, which is included in the packet, addressing density and traffic issues. As far as I know, there's no other new information. I do know that the applicant is here in the audience.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
If there's no one approving the motion, then I would say that the matter fails for lack of support in motion.
Motion hasn't been made yet.
Well, no one's
Isn't
making a
no
motion.
Okay,
That's fine.
let's make it. I'll make the motion. Approve.
So here, let me help. So if you want to do that, can you see that?
Okay. Yeah. Motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of South Lyon, rezoning parcel 21-29-176-012, 500 Stryker Street from R-3 to RM-2.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye. Roll call, please.
Yep. Lisa, could we do a roll call on that?
Sure. Walton? Richards?
Yes.
Parisian,
Yes.
Kibble,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Kurzweil,
No.
and Mayor Pelchak.
Yes. Motion passes. Moving on to old business number 2, consider first reading of revised liquor license ordinance. Give me a second on this. The recommendation for this is deny first reading of April 19th, 2018 version, approve second reading of the January 22nd, 2018 version of liquor license ordinance. Staff and attorney have concerns that the 419 version removes too many regulatory provisions which city may need to protect its interests and the interests of the residents with respect to valuable liquor license and the effects of licensed premises. Also, there are concerns that this ordinance relies too heavily on the MLCC process and the MLCC acting in the best interests of the city. This is something that we've been working on for quite a long time here. So if anyone has any discussion, feel free to jump in. Mr. Wilhelm?
Mr. Mayor, would anybody on council like an overview of the change and a discussion about what this does? Let me just give you, basically what I did is I took the chart for MLCC, identified and basically narrowed this ordinance to apply to only those licenses that require the approval of the local legislative body. So that is, by statute, the city council has to give a decision one way or the other on those license applications. It removes the transfer and it removes the business plan concept. It does maintain the application, the review criteria, and the right to object to renewals or seek a revocation. And that's really where we are. That's bare bones.
Councilmember Kivel?
It's strikingly weird to me that we would be making any kind of a recommendation of an approval that they could go further to the state without asking them any pertinent questions about their business plan. So if we're going to end up doing our due diligence, those questions are going to be necessary, and to not have that language in this ordinance just strikes me as odd. So,
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
I'm all in favor of making the process easier for applicants to secure a liquor license, as we have talked before. But I'd like to know, where is there one liquor license holder in this community that has come before council, other than Ryan Cottington, okay, or sent a letter to City Hall, come in to review the ordinance at the desk at the counter, or shown any great interest in this proceeding that we've been at for several months? I haven't seen or heard from a soul that holds a liquor license in this town. And the part that I recommended when I spoke the last time around, that with 11 liquor licenses and one up in the air, I think we should have an intermediate board between us. I don't think we should be the sole board of review for everybody that's got a liquor license. It's too wide open for outside influence and other people trying to, beat somebody else out. It's just not a good plan. I think we ought to have an intermediate board, and that's not in here. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Wilhelm?
Mr. Mayor, in October of 2017, or following the approval of the first reading in October of 2017, I believe it was late November, city staff, there was kind of an ad hoc committee populated, and we did have representatives of 4 license holders within the city appear and attend a meeting of that staff meeting to have input on the ordinance that was in play at the time. I think 3 of the 4 opposed the ordinance at that point. And Mr. Cottingim has consistently opposed the ordinances as presented.
Councilmember Kill.
Mr. Donahue, I don't know if it had come from him or if Mr. Robinson, Jeff Robinson from Third Monk, had provided a communication to council suggesting that he had no issues whatsoever with the language of the ordinance. So there has been a reflection of both sides of the issues.
Councilmember Parisian.
I did want to reiterate that as sitting on that subcommittee, we had, let's see, Katie from, it was Pins Bowling. We had an individual who owns the hotel that is next, or motel that is next to, let's see, Java House Cafe. There's a building over that way close to Trotter's Point. There was at least 5 representatives from the city who have an interest in this. And at the time, they did all oppose it. I haven't really heard anything approval-wise except from the owner of Third Monk, which I believe his name is Jeff.
Yep.
So that's the only individual that I heard express any type of approval. Other than that, there seems to be reservations. In fact, I did receive a letter tonight, an email from Mr. Cottingim, and at the same time, as he's always been here expressing his views, it's taken time out of his day, time away from his family, time away from his business. So his letter, in a nutshell, essentially says, you know, I can't continue to come to these meetings and speak out against this ordinance. It's not business friendly. It's not what we as a community would like to see. And as in Mr. Cottingim's words, somebody who was born and raised in this community, he wants to see South Lyon prosper to the best of its ability, and this ordinance isn't doing that. It's not going to help us get there. And that's his words. That's his expression of this ordinance. So again, it's time consuming, and I didn't realize it was going to be on the agenda again tonight, as I don't think a few other people did either. So I'm not in favor of it. I still feel as though it's restrictive. If we don't absolutely need it, I don't see us taking the time to do it. I think it's a well-drafted ordinance. I just don't see the need for it. That's just my view.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you. I also received the same email from Ryan Cottingim, and there is some additional language in here. He did ask that his email be read into the record. I think what I'll do is provide a copy of it. It could be included with the minutes. So I'm going to sort of highlight some additional comments that he makes. Is that he said one of the core principles of the Witch's Hat Brewing Company is supporting, growing, and being involved as much as possible in our local community. In my opinion, this ordinance is the opposite of that mission. Adding unnecessary regulation, hurdles, and requirements on businesses will never promote growth of business in our town. It will only harm it. And then he says earlier, I believe what the city is seeking is anti-business and anti-growth for our city. I tend to agree with the gentleman. I am not in favor of a lot of regulation for businesses. I have raised my opposition to this in prior meetings. I stand on those comments. I don't think anyone on this council is qualified to do any in-depth analysis of a business plan of any business. And quite frankly, I wouldn't want this council analyzing a business plan. You're not the one that's making the investment in the community. You're not the one that's pouring the hundreds of thousands of dollars into an establishment. You're not the expert in the business that these individuals are coming to our city with. So I say keep your hands off of these businesses. Let the entrepreneurs do what they do best, and that is they start businesses and they hire people. So I'm not in favor of this ordinance. I wasn't before, and I'm not going to vote for it tonight either. Thank you for your time, Mr. Mayor.
Did anyone else have anything they'd like to add to this? Oh, Mr. Donahue, sorry, I didn't see you over there.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
If we're approached by 2 potential applicants, one may be, in my opinion, very good for the community, one may not be. How do we handle that? What's the input?
Councilmember Kurtzwell?
I don't want you setting the standards for the community.
I'm just asking the question.
I'm just telling you.
So do we give it to the ill-equipped, lack of perhaps a potential to succeed, or do we just give it to anyone?
So you're going to make the determination as to what you think a business will succeed. If that business comes into town, let's take Draft Street as an example. Somebody walks in here and says, "Hi, I'm the new owner of a piece of property on the corner of whatever, and it's $1.2 million, and this is what I'm going to put in there." If they don't succeed, they're going to be out of business. That's their money, that's their loss,
That's our license.
you know?
That's the problem.
But most of these businesses bring their own licenses in.
I asked that question. Most communities, economic development staff and city attorneys have a role to play in picking the best applicant. That's all I'm saying. So whatever you direct, I'll do. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Mr. Wilhelm.
I feel like I have to add a little bit to this. I really take issue with the idea that this is not an unfriendly ordinance to business. This is a statutory process that you are required to be involved in. You must take action on these applications, and in order to get the license, you must approve them. I think Director Donahue points out a good point. If you have two applications that are filed on the same time, you have to make a decision. Are you going to grant one of them? You can only grant one because you have one quota license. Will you grant one of them the license? On what basis will you evaluate each of them? This ordinance is designed to provide you with an application process that requires them to submit various pieces of information about the owners, their plans, their experience. It also provides you with criteria, which some dips into the zoning type concepts, what's around it, how might it impact those uses, how does it affect traffic, pedestrian traffic, vehicle traffic. It may have economic development concepts involved, and it may be an evaluation of the owner and their experience. The city's role is to identify those applicants that it deems best for the licenses in its community. And I have concerns that without an ordinance, you're exposing yourself unnecessarily. And that's why this was turned around, and I believe this is a very bare bones. I didn't change the application and criteria, and if there's concerns about that component of it, I'd certainly like to hear more discussion from council about what are acceptable revisions, because I'm really in a position where I'm trying to guess the mindset of 7 elected officials, because I want to present an ordinance to this council that you can adopt so that you have an application and set of criteria, an application process and criteria to evaluate when you get these applications. You're required to do that under the MLCC and the Liquor Control Code.
Councilmember Parisian.
So I was under the impression that if you have 2 individuals who come to the city of South Lyon and say, I would like to open a business, and they both have applied through the state of Michigan for their licenses.
They don't apply, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Approval.
They don't go to the MLCC until they come to you first.
When they come to us, I think it's a first come, first served basis. Come to us, and then from there, I think the state will weed out individuals who, the state process is already incredibly stringent. It's very restrictive as it is. So getting through the state is enough for me to say, okay, you know what, that's fine. I wouldn't mind having an individual who can get through the state and pass their stringent tests and their requirements to have a business in South Lyon. So for me, it's a first come, first served basis. If you're willing to take a risk in our community and open up a business, I'm all for it. And I'm not going to say no to any entrepreneur that wants to open a business in South Lyon. We need it. We need to flourish our downtown. I don't want to seem not business friendly. And I don't think unless we absolutely need an ordinance, I don't think we should have it. And I think it's first come, first serve. That's how I'm looking at it.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tim, here's the problem that I'm having with the revised ordinance. You do good work. But I got this and did not have a clue as to why it was coming back. Nobody sent out an email and said, FYI, I'm working on a revised, blah, blah, blah. Can I have your input? For me, I haven't had the time to evaluate it, to really weed out the additional provisions that I feel are anti-business, because it's here in front of me tonight to vote on it. So,
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Wilhelm.
I mean, you do good work, but
Director Donahue has on a number of occasions indicated that there are people interested in coming into this community to open some type of liquor establishment. Therefore, there's some urgency about trying to get an ordinance in place which requires 2 readings or approximately 30 days. This was put together. I finished my revision the day of the packet was due. And that it took me that long from the last meeting to figure out how to address this and get to it, prepare it, package it, and get it to the interim city manager. I'm happy to, provide more input. As I indicated, I have concerns that you will get an application and not have an ordinance in place. And that is not what I want the city of South Lyon to face. That's why this is back so quickly. I think you need an ordinance in place. You haven't had one, and thus far you've been able to avoid problems. But I think having this ordinance is important. It formalizes the procedures that you will utilize as part of the statutory process to deal with liquor establishments, particularly ones that require your local approval. And as to Councilmember Parisian, I don't mean to be flippant, but if it's a first come, first serve, I'm going to apply for it tomorrow and get it and take it out of your community if I can get it. I think implicit, if I understand your comment, you do recognize that there's an ability of the city to say yes or no, and what this ordinance is designed to do is give you the criteria by which you evaluate and get to the answer of yes or no. The first come, first serve, I think you're saying when there's 2 competing applications, you would process the first one to completion, and that's a fine. But I think I want to make sure that my point is, if somebody applies, you don't automatically say yes. There's an evaluation process. If you don't have this ordinance, the process is largely ad hoc, which exposes the city unnecessarily.
Councilmember Parisian.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so I had already expressed my concerns. I believe it was the last 2 times this had come to council. I personally don't agree with the way that it's written. I don't think that you should have 3 recommendation letters to your character. I don't think that you should have to. So if you go to page 5 and you look at 6, 7, 8, those subsections I don't agree with. The character, experience, financial ability to meet the obligations. To me, like I said, if you're willing to open a business in South Lyon, those are things that I have said this meeting, which will make it the 3rd time this has come before us. No, actually the 4th time, because I mentioned this again when we had the subcommittee meeting. I mentioned it when you brought it back in January, and I mentioned it the last meeting that we had. These are, I think, stringent. These are very restrictive. I don't think if you have to go through our process as well as the state, you're asking for an excessive burden. That's burdensome to a business owner to try to jump through all these hoops. If you want to create a system, okay, fine. But I'm telling you, and I've been saying this over and over again, this is too much, at least from a business perspective. I'm not a business owner, but I wouldn't be happy trying to open a business and have to jump through these hoops and then the additional hoops that the state offers as well. So that's just my take on it. And I'm all in favor if you want to do a bare bones. I'm thinking bare bones as to what the state is requesting and nothing more, nothing less. This over here, a statement for an applicant to give you 3 references, why does that matter to me? If you are willing to open a business in South Lyon, I don't need to see your letters of recommendation. You're willing to take a risk in our community, great, good for you, come on in. That's just my perspective. And also the financial aspect of that is, if you're bringing your money to the table and willing to invest in our community, I don't want to know necessarily, the bank is the one who's going to be asking you questions about whether you can fund your business. I'm not the bank. I don't want to know whether you have to be able to fund your business. That's just me. That might be other people on council who disagree. But If you open up a business here and you have the funding, I don't want to ask you how much you have and whether you can fund it or not. That's the bank's job, not mine.
Mr. Wilhelm?
You know, as to the monetary component, you know, to me, I don't pretend to know business in and out, but I think common sense tells me I'd want to know if you're going to be paying. Are you going to make your money? Do you have anything saved? Do you have any cushion? Or are you simply going to use the revenue from the operation to fund all of your obligations? That, to me, that's different than if you have money on hand or a finance facility with a bank that you have access to money and so forth. But I understand your point, and I appreciate the input because you are one of 7, and I'm trying to figure out what I can do to draft this in a way that's acceptable to all of you, or at least 4 of you. So I appreciate the input.
Some of the most successful business owners started with nothing in their pocket, and they built themselves up into greatness. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I would like to open a business in South Lyon, I would hope council would give them the opportunity to. And again, I don't really want to pry into their personal details as to how much they have and whether they can fund it or not. That's on them. If they go out of business, survival of the fittest. It's capitalism at its finest. That's my take on this, and that's just a few of the sections that I had issues with. I thought at the last meeting, I could be wrong, but I thought I rattled off, hey, I don't like X, Y, and Z. But if not, I'll be happy to give you the draft that I had from last meeting and go over it with you.
I would appreciate that.
Okay, that's not a problem. Thank you, Tim.
Councilmember Walton?
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this right. This ordinance is only for businesses that want to have a liquor license. We don't require those same references and business plans from any of our other business owners, do we?
No, but you're not involved, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
You're not involved statutorily in that process.
So, because the way I'm reading it, it seems like we're requiring different sets of rules for different companies.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, Mr. Wilhelm?
So this process largely recognizes a substantial value in these licenses, particularly the Class C on-premises licenses. That's why the statute requires, and the MLCC requires, that these people and applicants go to the local community first and get legislative approval. Do you want these people in your community? Then we're going to evaluate them. And as to Councilmember Parisian, the MLCC is not looking at many of the concerns and interests that the city might be looking at. The effect on the neighbors, traffic, pedestrian, those kind of impacts, and what it might do economically to your downtown or the area of the city that they're locating in. Those are unique to the city, and the MLCC will not, in its process, is not going to look at some of those issues.
Councilmember Kivel?
The putting the real high quality part of not being overly restrictive on businesses, not being business friendly, I guess, is the mantra that seems to be going on. Unfortunately, by not being willing to expose what these guys would bring to the party and find out if we determine whether or not that meets the threshold that we find to be necessary to be likely to be successful, we're exposing the community into the higher potential of a failing enterprise. And as Mr. Wilhelm had said, that we are in this loop whether we want to be or not. There is a necessity for us to engage if somebody actually comes to our community asking for permission to grant them the approval for them to move to the state. There are so many things that we had the pizza place that had gone in over by where Bush's is when there was like a teenager kind of a deal over there. Do you remember that?
Kind of like a club-like thing.
Yeah, right? And the chronic the chronic complaints that we were getting from the neighbors that were adjacent to that property. And, luckily they ended up having deep pockets, but they decided that they just simply weren't making enough money to make it worth their while. And actually maybe the whole deep pockets thing was a lark too. I have no idea. But they ended up wrapping up and pulling out. Had they had a liquor license and performed as they had, that would have been our last quota license. And, we'd be sitting here hoping like crazy that come 2020 that we picked up enough residents to be able to escalate to another quota license. I don't see how this is such an onerous responsibility. The idea of 3 recommendations or referrals from people. I mean, we asked for referrals for people to apply to be appointed to city council, and nobody seemed to be terribly up in arms about that. I don't think that that's such a big ask.
That's just one, though. That's one of my money subsections.
Oh, okay, I know, but I mean, I'm kind of finding. I don't think that our being. First off, I don't think that we're being unbusiness friendly, and secondly, I don't think for us to ask for information. We've got a guy that's seen an awful lot of bars and restaurants come and go in Mr. Donahue. The idea that we can't reach out and get some kind of an assessment, just a thumbnail on whether he thinks that people that are coming in here are commensurate with the ones that have been successful in the communities that he's had a role in his past life in business here. So, and the idea that, you can find a handful of people that probably really did have the odds against them and that it worked out wonderfully well. I think Mr. Cotton Jim is actually kind of falls in that camp. I mean, I don't think he's the dark horse that an awful lot of the business that you were probably referring to were. But nonetheless, the lion's share of people that actually are successful are the ones that are quite organized. They go in there, they're going to end up providing all this same information that we're going to ask for to the state. If they do it 2 weeks earlier to come before us to ask for us to give them approval to go to the state, they're 2 weeks ahead of their schedule with gathering up their information. So I don't think that that's a big onerous imposition on them.
Councilmember Parisian?
I certainly don't mean to diminish Bob Donahue's experience, because I know you come with a lot of experience, Bob, and I don't mean any offense to you at all by not approving this. I just think that, again, that's just one of many. The references is just a few. I want this to be very laissez-faire, in my opinion. If you are a business owner, I don't think you should jump through the multiple hoops that the state is asking you to jump through as well. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to all of this. There are some things in here that I think are necessary. The preservation of our historic buildings, absolutely. That's something I think that we need to protect. But asking about the history and experience of the business owner holding a liquor license in the past, I mean, if the state's going to grant it to him, it's going to grant it to him again. I mean, that's not a concern of mine. But again, I'm one of 7. Their financial status and their ability to build or operate a business, again, if you're coming forward and want to start a business, that's on you. If you go out of business, also on you. Those are things to me that just don't seem as important. It's very laissez-faire in my mind. But I'm not opposed to all of them.
Should we do a checklist so we can say which ones we're opposed to and which ones we're not, at least to move more into that direction?
I think that's appearing like the only way we're going to get any progress here, because here's where I'm at on this whole thing after taking it all in again. Bob Donahue and Mr. Wilhelm are on the same page of protecting an asset for the community. I have a hard time turning my back on that. At the same time, Councilmember Kurtzwell and Councilmember Parisian make good points that I think we'd be lying to everyone here if we haven't heard, whether it's on the street or read it online, that South Lyon tends to have a little bit of a reputation for being difficult to deal with, whether that's a business or other. So, in a move to try and get this meeting moving forward, if people up here would take the time to say red X one that they can't even possibly stomach seeing in it, and other ones that you think are going to benefit this community, then that's what we got to do. Mr. Wilhelm, I appreciate your effort to get this rewritten and on here again. I think it may have, those that may have not supported this thing may have taken that a different direction and thought that it was tried to slide through the back door again. So I know this is going to be a tough one on you, Tim, and you are busy and you've been working on this for a long time, but I would ask or suggest that each and every one of us go through it. What's a deal breaker? What isn't? And try and get that back to Wilhelm, Tim, so he can look at it. I don't know where everyone else is on it. Councilmember Kurtzwell?
I move that the, what is this? Is this the second reading?
This is the first reading of the revised. Yep.
I move that the first reading of the revised liquor ordinance be postponed for 30 days from tonight, and that members of council are directed to provide further comment to the city attorney.
Discussion.
Councilmember President, go ahead.
I have a question for Bob. Bob, do we have any businesses that are currently interested in coming to South Lyon that will be negatively affected by this? I heard a mention of a wine bar.
I don't personally feel anyone's negatively affected by it.
Okay.
I know we have someone that came in and spoke with Lloyd and I just last week.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was anybody that was willing to come to South Lyon, ready to go, and was interested. And I didn't want to, if this is going to be holding something up, maybe we need to look at our time frame again.
I don't think 30 days is a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Chief Collins.
just a calendar comment. The next meeting is 3 weeks out. That would not be within the 30-day time frame, so that would put us 5 weeks out to a subsequent meeting. So whatever council's desire is, I'll put it on whichever agenda you wish.
Thank you, Chief, for that feedback. Councilmember Kurtzwell, do you want to?
Go with the 5 weeks. Doesn't sound like there's anybody lined up for it. We need a second here.
Yep, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Old business number 3, review of planning commission practices and functions overall. Mr. Richards, before I hand this over to you, do we have anyone from the planning commission in the crowd today? Okay. I want you to go ahead and give us your information, but I think we probably should have had someone from the.
I tried to contact
Okay.
some, but they didn't get back to me.
That's fine.
No.
Go ahead.
Can I have 10 minutes on this up front?
I can't give you 10 minutes right up front, but why don't you, can we try having you address the council from back here tonight? I'll fix your microphone so you can stand if you're more comfortable.
I'll fix the mic, I don't know. But I'll try to sit down, but
Do you want to sit down or do you want to stand?
You pick up another minute by sitting there, rather than walking
okay, let's
out
start
there.
sitting
Jeez.
down. I just got to, can I,
This thing picks up pretty good. Go ahead, buddy.
all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's been one of my goals since becoming on council, and long since before council, to someday be able to bring some action to the topic of how our planning commission runs, okay? As all of you well know, when I spoke in the comments as a citizen activist, I stayed on the yellow brick road and I never criticized anything. But tonight, there's going to be some actual criticism of the whole deal across the board on how our planning commission functions. And I think it needs to be raised because, in my opinion, the planning commission has cost this city tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last probably decade, I'll just go for 8 years, that I've been aware of what's going on. Mr. Bob Donahue, I got to be fair about it. Mr. Donahue said, Carl, this is the way us planning commission functions. That's the way it does in most towns. Okay, but I got to differ with that. Okay, I've checked with some other communities, Green Oak Township, Northfield Township, Salem. Okay, Lyon Township, and their whole structure is different. And does it save money or help the applicant better? I can't make a judgment on that. But with some of our applicants that we have, it's over a year before they even find out where they stand. And months will go by and they'll be asking, where am I at with this? What's going on with my proposal? And nobody knows. And I remember asking Megan different times, where is it with this, on this issue? Primarily Mr. Schober's property that we just approved tonight. He was in the loop on this for over a year. Part of it was his fault. Okay, no doubt about it. But I think part of it was our fault. Over the last 6 and 7 years, my activity with the Planning Commission was to tell them what the truth was, okay, which they were not getting from developers and our consulting engineers, in my opinion, okay? And when I would take the podium there and address them on a topic, I wanted to give them a brief uptake of what the truth really was on a certain subject, historically speaking, okay? 5 out of the 6 years I worked with a higher intensity to get the truth and historical perspectives to the properties in question. I phased out. In 2017, I told the Planning Commission, this before I was ever running for council, I said, I'm going to phase out of my activities with you, but I still couldn't keep out of it. I still had to notify them of a few things. Now, since I'm elected, I can't speak, and I go along with that. If I have anything important to say, I'll pass it out in the lobby, okay? So I toned down my activism. Over those years, as I look back at it, that I was active with the council, or active with the Planning Commission, trying to get them from committing a disaster. Now, some things I was successful with, okay? But overall, I was a complete failure. Many of my copies of things I made, this is just to give you an idea. I'll hold this up. This is my file I accumulated on Planning Commission matters. This is just a prop, okay, that I brought tonight. This is sort of put away and filed at home. And there was some things that Mr. Collins and Mr. Wilhelm can probably remember. I submitted to the chairman of the Planning Commission about changes in ordinances. I never got it back. I never got my stuff all back that I submitted over the years. Maybe it isn't that important. Okay. I wish we had some members at large in the audience. Councilman Kurtzwell served on planning, and I passed out these cards to each of you to put down your ideas for further questions or disclaimers. I made many efforts on the part of this with the previous city managers, and going back all the way to Murphy, Dave Murphy, that was our city manager years ago. And I don't think he put forth the proper effort on a place that we all know of called the Knolls. It was always my proposition. I pleaded with him. Contact Michigan State and see if we can't get a research facility there, or a think tank, high tech in Southfield, to bring some sort of useful program into that, which it was light industrial at the time. Now it's residential, and we still have problems. We're going to continue to have problems. Anyway, without going through this one item by item, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Mayor, ask everybody to ask me some questions. We can cover more ground.
I'm going to go ahead and just say that I'm not necessarily comfortable giving constructive feedback to the Planning Commission without having someone here present. If anyone else would like to join the discussion, I would welcome that, but I'm not going to get involved.
Yeah, I agree.
Does anyone?
We're 6.5 minutes into this, and I haven't heard anything that really lights me up about anything. So,
Carl,
I mean, it's just you're disappointed that they don't take you more seriously. Well, you know, that's kind of the real world. So
yeah.
I think maybe we could speak to Chief Collins or Attorney Wilhelm, and maybe there's a way you could give them constructive feedback to the Planning Commission in a different avenue and kind of move along here tonight.
Yeah, I would like to see, I told the Planning Commission when I was phasing out that I put it to you guys, I hope you can fix yourselves, okay? Otherwise, some point in time, I'm going to bring it up to council. The council ought to look at it and propose a fix-up plan for you. Because, go ahead.
I will tell you what, I will reach out personally to the Planning Commission and inform them of your thoughts and see what they can say, and see if they have any feedback. Maybe they can come and do public comment next meeting or something along that line. Because I just feel like getting a one-sided story here is not going to be productive for us tonight.
I'm fine with Mr. Mayor. This is open. I'm willing for everybody to have feed in on this.
Yep. Well, I think everyone else has had an opportunity. I'll double check. Does anyone else have anything to add on this?
8 minutes.
Okay.
I just kicked you. I'm sorry.
I believe we'll move on.
Okay. This was just a discussion topic. Okay. There's no action moves on anything tonight.
Okay.
Thank you very much, people.
Yep. Thank you, Councilman Richards. With that, we're going to move on to new business. Number 1 is budget amendments. Recommendation is to approve the proposed amendments. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
I move to approve the proposed amendments for the 2017-2018 budget regarding Fund 641, Equipment Replacement, Fund 401, Capital Improvement, Fund 203, Local Streets, and Fund 592, Water and Sewer, as further detailed in the agenda note, new business, item number 1.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Number 2, consider approval of, I'm assuming it's longevity run with LUNG capitalized.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. And we have a representative here.
Thank you.
Good evening. David Elkins, 975 Hidden Creek Drive. 7 years ago, almost to the day, I was diagnosed with stage 1 lung cancer. After an extensive stay in the hospital, some chemo, the big man upstairs took care of me, and I made it through. So my wife and I, and Maggie, you know all about this, my wife and I were looking for a way to get involved and give back. And we found this organization, Longevity. The mission of Longevity is to promote early detection, which obviously for my case was very near and dear to my heart. So we got involved. At the time, the organization held this 5K walk/run in Ann Arbor, and we were able to bring this event to South Lyon. So this is going to be our 3rd year. In the last 3 years, we've raised almost $60,000 for early detection. Luckily, we're surrounded with a bunch of amazing family, friends, people in the community that have come out and supported us. Chief has all the information on this. We're requesting an officer on 9 Mile. We're going to pay for that, so our walkers and runners can cross safely. The walk run map is in front of you, along with a little card that outlines all of the information about our event. So basically, the walk will start in McCaddy Park. We have the covered area already reserved. We'll go west on that path. We'll head north behind Hidden Creek. We'll head all the way down to Volunteer Park. We'll circle back around and do the exact same walk back. So the event runs from probably around 9 to noon. We're very good about cleaning up after ourselves. And basically, if I can just give you a little bit of information, I know some people watch this online. For those that are watching, you can join us, our team, Team Lucky Charm, or you can create your own team. It's $25 for adults, $10 for kids. Longevity.org/South Lyon is the website. You can go on there, all the information's on there. And so what I would ask is that you approve our ability to do our third year walk here.
Councilmember Kibble.
Well, I was seeing that it's going to be June 2nd. I think that most of the snow should be melted by then.
No
so that'd
doubt.
Be great. Yeah.
No doubt. We've actually done this walk in early April, which would have been very interesting this year for sure.
It sounds like a great event.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It does. I'd like to make the motion to approve the support of the approval of use of the rail trail for the Longevity Foundation 5K walk and run from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, June 2nd, and to approve the use of McCaddy Park and the pavilion starting at 7:30 a.m.
I'll second.
Second, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That was a no-brainer. Go ahead, Councilmember
I
Kurtzel.
just wanted to make one quick comment. I just want to say, David, you and your wife are just a phenomenal couple. The commitment that the two of you are making to help people with early diagnosis, your commitment is a life commitment. Everybody knows your story. Everybody knows how committed the two of you are. And I just want to say South Lyon is so lucky to have the two of you
Thank you so much.
here with us. You are just an incredible couple.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Can Bob get that on the calendar too? On your grand calendar?
June's what?
Great. Thank you.
What's the date? June 2nd?
Thanks for coming. Anytime.
Moving on to new business number 3, consider approval of Lake Street Cruise-In.
We have a contingent representing Lake Street Cruise-In.
Great.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Cook, 25701 McCrory Lane, South Lyon, and we represent the Lake Street Cruise-In Committee. So we're going to talk as a group. So start talking, boys.
Same as last year, we're asking for the street closure for the Wednesday night cruise-in. We've had successful years. Last year, one of the months we had 270 cars show up, and it was well represented. Everybody loves it. We have quite a few cars and people, and the town seems to be pretty supportive of it, real supportive, and all the residents, they love it as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Chief Collins, please.
If I could, real quickly, the police department does support this application.
Great.
I will say that the Lake Street Cruise-In has gotten more efficient and better each year, and they've been extremely cooperative with any request that either the police or the fire departments have had based on safety concerns.
That's great. That means a lot to me because I know it's a big deal. Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
I'd like to move to approve the Lake Street Cruise-In application and resolve that Lisa Dayton, City Clerk Treasurer, is hereby authorized to make application to the Road Committee for Oakland County on behalf of the City of South Lyon and the County of Oakland, State of Michigan, for the necessary permits in order to allow the conduct of the Lake Street Cruise-In on May 23rd, on June 27th, July 25th, August 22nd, and September 26th, 2018, and the related road closures: Lake Street between Lafayette Street and Reese Street, North Wells Street immediately south of the north entrance to the Wells Street parking lot, to the alley that extends from South Wells Street to Lafayette Street from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., except September 26th when you have the closure at 6 p.m., and that the City of South Lyon and the County of Oakland, Michigan will faithfully fulfill all permit requirements and shall save harmless, indemnify, defend, and represent the board against any and all claims for bodily injury, property damage, or any other claim arising out of or related to operations authorized by such permits as are issued.
Discussion?
All in favor?
Well,
Aye.
really quick,
Aye.
I wanted
Oh,
discussion.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you for all that you're doing, because this has become a destination event. So people from all across the state of Michigan are learning South Lyon's name if they haven't known it already. So this is huge. Thank you for all that you're doing and all the effort you put in. It's not easy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, these have been the highlight of my Wednesday evening
Yeah.
for
Very
the last,
cool. Good.
probably,
For a
what,
lot of people.
how many years has it been now?
Seven.
Yeah.
Years,
I mean, just fantastic.
We're lucky to have you.
It's bigger and bigger. We've
Yeah.
got people coming from Grand Rapids.
Exactly. I mean, from out of state, it's really quite a draw. And I mean, everybody has such a good time. It's entertaining, and the obviously that some of the dedication these people put into their rides is over the top.
So cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
One more time.
Moving on to consider approval of Motorfest 2018.
This year, for the first year, we're going to have an all-day Lake Street Cruise-In Motorfest, which will be the footprint, basically, of the Pumpkin Fest. It will be Lake Street and Lafayette Street, Pontiac Trail. It will be July 28th, a Saturday. We're starting at, the road will close at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're requesting that the road stay closed until 7 p.m. that evening, and the show will be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We've got a band coming in, band shell, we've got food trucks. We're working in conjunction with the First Presbyterian Church for a kids zone, so we're trying to make it an all-day event for the town.
Fantastic.
The band also is the Magic Bus, if you're all familiar with Magic Bus.
Yeah.
So Mark Harrington is the band leader. He plays for Chris Baker at Baker's on Sundays, but this is his band that's coming, and it's going to be pretty huge.
Wonderful.
Mr. Mayor?
We're expecting about 400 cars.
Chief Collins, go ahead.
Once again, the police department does support the application and will cooperate in facilitating a successful event. A point of clarification, the footprint is slightly larger than Pumpkin Fest in that Lake Street would be closed, not just at Wells Street, but all the way down to Reese Street.
Okay.
We're willing to live with that for one day, whereas if it was Pumpkin Fest, it would be 3 days, and that would create increased difficulties. But for one day, we think we can deal with it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Councilmember Kurtzwell?
Yes, I move to approve the Motorfest application and resolve that Lisa Deaton, City Clerk Treasurer, is hereby authorized to make application to the Road Commission for Oakland County on behalf of the City of South Lyon and the County of Oakland, Michigan, for the necessary permits to conduct Motorfest on July 28, 2018, and the related road closures. Lafayette Street between Whipple Street and Liberty Street, Lake Street between Washington Street and Reese Street, North Wells Street immediately south of the north entrance to the Wells Street parking lot, to the alley that extends from South Wells Street to Lafayette Street from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., and that the City of South Lyon and the County of Oakland, Michigan will faithfully fulfill all permit requirements and shall save harmless, indemnify, defend, and represent the board against any and all claims for bodily injury or property damage or any other claim arising out of or related to operations authorized by such permits as are issued.
All support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Any questions anybody has?
Yeah.
Anything?
Thank you.
Excited
Hope you'll
for it.
all be there.
Oh, we
Of course.
really look forward
Oh,
to
by
it,
the
yeah.
way, this Wednesday at the tavern, 6 to 8 o'clock, we're having our April kickoff party.
Perfect.
For both cruises. We kind of get everybody to come that fourth Wednesday. Everybody gets messed up on that when there's 5 Wednesdays. So, we're trying to indoctrinate that. This Wednesday, the 25th, I think is.
What time?
6 to 8.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to make it perfect.
Okay?
Great,
Thank
guys.
you.
Great,
See
thank
there.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Rip.
you.
Number 5 on new business, consider approval of purchase of raw sewage pump. Recommendation on this agenda note is approved purchase of new raw sewage pump number 3. We have adequate funds available in the current budget under line item 592-557-740, operating expenses to make this purchase.
Mr. Mayor, we could turn the more exciting item over to Mr. Bovin if there's any questions.
I think I've already brought this up before, but we had a pump that we thought we had repairs on, and ended up being a catastrophe. So the parts were actually more than a new pump, so that's why we went with the new pump.
Councilmember Kennedy.
I'll make the motion that we approve the purchase of the new raw sewage pump number 3 from Kerr Pump at a cost of $19,800.
Second. Oh, Laura's gone.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Nice pictures.
New business number 6, consider ASTI proposal.
Mr. Mayor and Council.
Mr. Wilhelm?
So this is just the first step in what is likely to be a much longer process. The agenda note covers some of the background on this. In order to evaluate this issue that's been, or the request that's been made by Michigan Seamless Tube, the city needs some assistance from an environmental consultant. The city is currently working with ASTI on other matters, and I obtained a proposal from ASTI, and if the council's inclined, if that's approved, we could go forward. I have communicated with Diane Martin at ASTI regarding the removal of the limitation of liability and indemnification provisions, which she indicated was acceptable. And there was a question about whether this cost is one that should be borne by the city, given the nature of the request and the source of the problem. And Interim Chief Collins and I and the city's engineer met with Michigan Seamless Tube and their attorney and their engineers, and they've indicated that they will make the city whole, for lack of a better term, with respect to any costs related to this. And given that inquiry, I'd like to go get that in writing from them. But in the overall scheme, retaining an environmental consultant is the first step, I think, to getting the city in a position to fully evaluate this. A second step that I want to make the council aware of is to have Michigan Seamless Tube and its attorneys or representatives come in and present what this problem is, how the problem arose, what the solution is, and basically lay out their request. We'd like to get, I think it makes sense to have an environmental consultant review things prior to that presentation so that they can have some input and potentially help guide Michigan Seamless Tube and its representatives to make that presentation to the council as effective as possible. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Councilmember Kivel?
Actually, I think that makes a great deal of sense to have our guys, before they officially have qualified the fact that they're going to cover the cost of this expert for us. Plus, this gives us the idea that we can validate by our guy to what they're going to, the story that they'll end up providing to us. So it's really unfortunate. I mean, is this supposed to have been something that wasn't the thing that they've been working on for decades? Because how would this new plume have come out of that facility?
There's a lot of background here. So we spent over an hour with Michigan Seamless Tube. I don't feel comfortable representing anything about this from their perspective. I'd like them to come in and present to you and let you hear this firsthand. But I think it would be in the city's best interest to confirm that the cost of any environmental consultant for the city would be borne by Michigan Seamless Tube. Get that consultant lined up, have them prepared, and the next step would be to coordinate that presentation. I think would be the next step, but I'd certainly be open to input from anybody that thinks, that has thoughts on how this ought to roll out.
Well, this is downstream, but I'm also concerned about the fact that we own a significant amount of the property that's being affected by this. And, I mean, everything has a value. And I know that we have a need for a DPW area, so maybe that one isn't quite as big of a something to be concerned about as some other areas that might still be part of the city's property that might have had some commercial value, and perhaps we would have looked at swapping some property for some other property. And if this takes our ability to end up trying to work in our own best interests, I'd like to know, are there any solutions, or do we have any bargaining room? And, you know, some of the implications that are big picture asset issues. So I don't know that ASTI's going to end up being the guys that do that. Commercial real estate people or something to try to discern what our potential loss might end up being, I think would be important for us to have.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really given much thought to that concept, but I do understand that it may be one that's in play as to this issue.
Councilmember Parisian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attorney Wilhelm, is this a time-sensitive document? So, in other words, how soon are we going to get representatives to come speak to us?
We don't have a definitive timeline on this. I think Michigan Seamless Tube has indicated they would like to take care of this and get this a decision one way or the other. They're hopeful that the council will approve it, and they seem willing to do whatever is necessary to get the council comfortable with that. I think you need, I think you need an environmental consultant to evaluate this and figure out exactly. There's a lot of background material, how this came to be, what its potential impact is, and that's outside of my bailiwick.
That's my concern, is the potential impact, and if it's, I would like the information sooner rather than later to see what the impact will be. I mean, next council meeting, could we have representatives come speak to us, or is it?
I think that's a little soon.
Okay.
I'd like to give if council approves the ASTI proposal, I'd like to give them some reasonable period of time to evaluate the information.
Okay. And that's fair. That's fair. Thank you.
Councilmember Richards, I know you had something.
Yeah. Mr. Wilhelm, I have the material here, okay, that Chief Collins provided for me that came from you. And I have something the rest of this council hasn't seen. I've gone through about a third of it. It's pretty technical, but the actual chemical contaminant that this is all concerned about isn't mentioned in this proposal, but I don't know if I'm free to mention it or not, but it's down there 40 to 50 feet below ground level. It's not on the surface contamination. Otherwise, the ducks and the geese and the turtles and frogs would all be dead over there by the water plant. It's polyvinyl chloride. It's pretty potent stuff. It's down there 40 to 50 feet is where the plume, as I read this, is where it's detected. I'm fully in favor of proceeding, and I've read it. I'm glad to clarify that the tube mill's going to pay the first $7,200. I was wondering if we were going to have to pay that, but the way I read it, they were offering to pay for it, which sounds good to me. But in the future, I'm willing to give what the tube mill wants, okay? As long as they'll go along with some proposals that I'm going to discuss with council at a later date. Okay, thank you very much.
Does anyone have anything else to add?
I make a motion we approve the ASTI environmental proposal to provide environmental consulting services to evaluate the proposed groundwater use restriction ordinance for an estimated fee of $7,200 and authorize the interim city manager to sign the proposal subject to interim city manager approval of revisions to the attachment A terms and conditions.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to new business number 7, discussion of leaf pickup and disposal. Councilmember Kennedy?
This comes out of the discussion we had at the last session regarding dumping the leaves at Volunteer Park. The utility superintendent, Mike Boven, did some additional investigation. He's got some of the costs in here. He's also in the process of getting additional information.
And I have some of it this evening.
Yeah, but
that I
do
can
we
share
have
with you guys.
everything yet, Mike? Or
I don't have everything completed, but the other...
We can certainly postpone this till all the figures are in.
I think one of the main issues that we're going to run into is I talked to a couple directors around the area that have looked at putting leaves on their own property before, and the one major thing that you have to consider is that when that compost is created and it rains, you can create a leachate from that. And you have to usually get permits through the state, containment areas, and it could get very costly to look at that route. So I don't know. I'm not going to tear anybody because I have not done my thorough research on that yet to find out exact costs. But I did look at costs with GFL that you guys asked me to do as far as what they would do. Sam, who was here before with GFL, gave me just a rough estimate. This is a rough estimate. He wanted me to make sure it was a rough estimate of about $45,000 to add pickup through the end of November. If we have to go into December, there's already something in our contract that states there's extra cost for that pickup as well. So wow. I would think at some point it's going to be pushing right to what we're doing right now or close to it. So I don't know if that's feasible or not, but we can still pull those numbers together.
Yeah. Councilmember Kurtzwell, please.
Just for your information, I'll give you her phone number. I spoke with Sandra Tuthill today from Tuthill Farms. She's right on Marshall.
Yep.
She's about 5 minutes
We've
from
gotten
here.
prices from her. Yep.
Okay. They do business with Green Oak. They do their leaves. They do the city of Brighton. They do the village of Milford. They do a lot for Washtenaw County and Livingston County. And they're $10 a cubic yard.
They gave us $8 a cubic yard.
Okay, well then that's even better. So there's that. She's right here in the backyard. I don't know if you can haul it.
We do. That's what we would do. And again, ideally you want to haul it real close because you have to take the equipment apart, you have to dump it, put it back together, and that all causes or creates time. And the farther you go, of course, you've got more man hours involved instead of just dumping it locally. I know the city of Brighton does. They dump it on their yard, but then they immediately haul it onto trucks. They have Corrigan haul it for them.
Corrigan does the hauling. So I don't know if you need a hauler, but maybe the city can do their own
And it's
hauling.
about the same cost as we're dumping right now. However, we've been paying in the past $3 to $4. You can see on that thing per yard, and it's going to jump up to like you said, 10, 8. We've also got a quote for 6. The two we did, Normar and another one. They don't want it no more. So that's the problem with having to haul it over to Tuthill. So.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Mike, at a price of $45,000, I think we could take a look at making a deal somewhere because there's other vacant properties, you being new, you wouldn't know about them in this community. We got 11 acres out there on 11 Mile, right next to the borderline, which was turned down for development last year. We got the 40 acres over there, or the 32 acres, on Dixboro Road called West End Development. That's light industrial. Nothing's going on there. It's right in back of the 2 mill. There's some other vacant land besides Volunteer Park. But this is private ownership, but it's just sitting there. Right. And it'd make a great place to dump leaves. Because I'm familiar with that land.
Well, and again, I'd have to look at that state requirements for that leachate stuff. And if I don't, and if I find that that's too costly, we're probably beating down a dead end road.
Okay, I'll just say for 45,000, let's look at some other options.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, please, and then I'm going to come over to you, Councilmember Kennedy. Go ahead.
Well, you can go.
No, Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
I think you're absolutely right, is that once you start dumping in its compostable material, which this is, I think you have to get the DEQ involved, because it's not just dumping the leaves, but once it starts composting, you have to manage the compost, which means you have to get in there and either turn it or do something with it. You cannot just let it sit.
Correct.
So I think for the city to get involved in a composting operation is going to require significant permits, et cetera, that you need to do. And additionally, I did ask for the deed to Volunteer Park to see if there was a deed restriction. I know you've been very busy, Tim. I would like to look and see, yes.
I can get that for you.
Perfect. If I could just take a look at the deed and see if there's a deed restriction as to how that land can be used, I'd like to look at that. But regardless, I'm not in favor of any dumping at Volunteer Park. So.
Superintendent Bovin?
Well, I lost my train of thought. I was listening to her. It'll come back to me in a minute.
Okay.
Sorry.
Here's my thought on this, since we're kind of covering this with a little bit of a broad umbrella tonight. If anyone didn't have anything else to add to this immediately, I think this is a major topic in town. I've had several people approach me about it. Go ahead.
I did remember. I did talk to GFL also, and Sam also said they would provide, just like Corrigan does, they can provide the hauling for us if we wanted to. As long as you dump it on site and don't let it, create that compost and get it off the site right away with the trucking, there's no issues. So, but again, we still have to have a dump spot to do that transportation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So just to get back to what I was saying here, a lot of people in town, this is something that people are paying attention to. I don't know if everyone else is. I mean, I had a couple phone calls at the house this weekend, people I was running into, and there's misinformation getting out there. And so I think we need to be careful on how far we're going with this without all the information. We still haven't allowed to hear from the man that was farming the land, possibly here tonight. Would we be willing to listen to what was going on out there based on what's going on from the Parks and Rec on the future of that land? Do we want to ask that to postpone that? Where are we at with that?
With what now? The farming?
Yes.
Yeah. Personally, we cut it off for a reason. I mean,
so
if we were going to entertain the idea of that being farmed again, I would go back to what I had said when we initially ended up having the farming take place, that it should be people can submit a proposal. We decide what is in our best interest from the proposals that are put forward. That it can't be lost on you guys that this was free property for him to farm. I had asked Mr. Hamlin, you have other farming opportunities that are your plantings other places, and you lease that property, correct? And obviously he does. I mean, we're just giving away that farm or that property to be harvesting. I mean, if it was going to some charity, Feed the World, some kind of a thing like that, but this is private enterprise. So if that's going to be the case, how about we end up getting proposals from anybody that would want to entertain the idea of doing the same activity and see what's in the community's best interest.
Okay. Councilmember Friesen. Mr. Hamlin, we're going to allow him to address as long as we don't have any.
It's your call, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. So as long as we don't have a majority that rules against it, I'm going to allow Mr. Hamlin to speak his piece.
Well, I don't have a problem with him saying whatever he wants.
No, right. Well, I'm following you.
Well, the whole key is, and the whole thing was not free because it was my money that cleaned up that property of the debris that was left and the TVs and everything else. So it was not free.
That was your buy-in.
I used that property for 5 years. I also, off that property last year, donated one full semi-load to food gatherers in Ann Arbor. One full semi-load.
Good.
That's a lot of money for people that had no food. I do it every year. But the biggest thing is, you know, if there's nothing to put out for bids, I'm keeping the property clean by farming it.
So would anybody else that would farm it? That's the whole objective.
I understand that, but if you just let it go, it's all going to grow back up with weeds and everything else. Now, I had a bid to clean up the last parcel of that comes in off of Dixboro Road, where you come into the ball fields. That was $50,000 to clean up that section that was left. So, I mean, so you're going to go, you know, I mean, the whole thing is, you know, it was cleaned up for further development for Parks and Rec or whatever it may have you. And then there were some issues there was too much getting cleaned up, and then there were some people that had issues, so we quit. But I mean, the biggest thing is, you know, if you go to Salem Township where they have their compost yard, they have leachate over there for their compost yard. And if you do that and allow that to happen, I mean, it's just going to create more than just leaves there. So, I mean, but the biggest thing with me is time is of essence. I mean, because I'm going to start planting Monday. It's time.
No, I understand that, but that's not our fault that you're coming to us at the 11th hour to ask whether or not you can use that.
Not at the 11th hour. I asked this last meeting.
Well, I know, but I mean, so we didn't have any discussion.
I understand
You just
that.
had a conversation bringing this to our attention.
Right.
So.
Well, because I knew that my contract was over. They had called me and said that they had sent a letter to my house, which I never got no letter to my house because I had moved. So I never got so I continued to farm it. But the whole thing is you know, I mean, it's, you know, I want to continue to farm it is the thing. I want to keep preserving what's there.
Well, and I would like the
My
opportunity
thing is
for
I
others.
did the initial effort to clean it up for the city. And I think I should have the right to continue to farm.
Well, you don't have the right to do it. You have the right to ask us whether or not that's something that's viable.
That's what I'm asking you. I feel that I have the right to ask.
And I'm saying that I prefer the idea, if this is going to be the way we're going to conduct that property in the interim until it's developed as parkland, I would prefer that we end up having people submit their proposal. What if the next guy says, I'll do the same thing and I'll donate 2 truckloads full of whatever, you know, so.
I don't think so, but.
Well, that's just it. You don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
There's not too many farmers left in this city.
Okay.
In this township.
Councilmember Parisian, you have something to add?
Yes. Correct me if I'm saying your name wrong, Mr. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Hamlin, I just have a few questions for you. So it is my understanding that you want to continue to farm the land, correct?
Absolutely.
And you would be doing so with, ideally, the old contract, with the same provisions of the old contract. So what you had with the city.
Yes.
Okay. When did that contract expire? Was it 2015?
It was 15 or 16.
Okay, so the contract
I think it was
expired
16.
in 2016, but the city continued to let you farm the land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to kind of direct this to Parks and Rec. Are you opposed to having the land farmed? Is the commission opposed to that?
We would prefer that there's some sort of activity on the land that prevents the dumping and other undesirable activities that we've had in the past.
So you're okay with farming, though,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
It also keeps the overgrowth from starting again.
And
When we do start to develop the park, we're that much farther ahead when the land is being maintained.
Okay, that's good to know. That's not something I knew. What I wanted to say, though, again, I'm one of 7, but in my personal opinion, with the fact that you're doing this out of your own pocket, it's not costing the city anything. It's actually helping the city's parks, and the fact that you're giving back to the community, that's huge. I would be in favor in renewing your contract and keep going with this. But again, I'm only one voice out of 7, but we don't have as many farmers as we used to have. So I think it's a dying trade, and we need you. So
thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, please.
Yeah, I come from an ag background, so I can appreciate the time sensitivity that we have here. I doubt whether there's going to be any farmers coming forward in the next 7 days that are going to want to farm that land. And you really do need to start getting in there and prepping the property for sure, and you got to get your seed in. I think that we've worked with you in the past. There haven't been any issues. I think that what we need to do as a city is to get our ducks in a row, which sometimes we don't always do. I tend to believe you that you were not provided with notice when your contract was terminated or whatever. You changed addresses, and I think the fact that you've even been here looking to come back sort of tells me that you were unaware that the contract had been terminated or that it expired or whatever. The city has permitted you to farm there in the past, and I would say for this year, have you bought, I'm just curious, have you bought any seed yet?
All my seeds getting delivered Monday.
Okay, all right. So I would not have a problem with you farming this year. Your seed is coming in, you're ready to go. And we need to work out an issue in terms of how we're going to deal with this next year. So we just, we're without a city manager, so some things are going to slip through the crack, but I don't think you should have to pay the price because we have issues with management over here. So I would definitely allow you to go, and if you got seed coming on Monday, then get in there and get your seed in and have another season.
Glenn, is that something that you would entertain, is allowing Mr. Hamlin to take care of it this year?
No, I'll vote against it. Just philosophically, I think.
No, that's fine. I understand where you're coming from, but I mean, we're up against it here. The Parks and Rec seems like they're on board with it. I mean, I'd entertain a motion because...
I make a motion that Farmer Kenny be permitted to farm the land that he has farmed in the past with respect to Volunteer Park, and he is permitted to do those activities that he has done in the past, but not enlarge the area in which he has done, but contain it to the footprint that he has used in the past. And we will move forward and give him permission and consent to use that property for the summer of 2018 and the fall, with the condition that he does donate some of his product to a food bank.
Could you put a caveat that we go by the terms that were in the original contract, just for the legalese aspect of it?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
I just wanted to add something. Is this something that we could maybe not let fall between the cracks next year in like January or February to revisit? Let's see where the Parks and Rec's at.
Let our city manager know that. Our new city manager.
All right.
That's
would
usually what I
hate to
do.
see us- I don't want to
December, January.
Yeah, I don't want to be in the same seat again next year.
Right.
If we're not ready to go at Volunteer Park, and this is working out for everyone.
I agree with that.
But you let us know too. Keep us on our
Yeah,
toes.
I
Mark
will.
your calendar as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin.
Wait, so I have a question.
Fire.
Not for him, but for in general. That doesn't cover our leaf issue.
No.
I was ready to say that.
I have
No.
a question for Mr. Bowman, Mr. Mayor, if I
Yep.
could.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bowman, if we're simply looking for a place to drop the leaves for someone to pick them up, is it possible to use the property at the back end of the DPW yard?
Yes, there's different places we could do that with, yeah. We're gonna look at a bunch of options. We got a lot of time here to look over through the summer, so.
And that, thank you for bringing that up, because I was going to finish my idea. There's a lot of people in town that are paying attention to what's going on with the leaves. The leaves are a big deal. We don't have all the information tonight. I think we need to have all the information tonight, so misinformation isn't getting out to our citizens. Well, I heard this, well, I heard that. Well, so are we willing? I'm willing to entertain a motion to table this until Mr. Bovin can get all the information that we need to make a decision on this.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Kennedy, please.
Just, I'll emphasize what you've just said. The question that came up this morning was, well, if I've got to bag these things, who's going to provide the bags?
Right.
So, I mean, it's a service that I definitely would like to see us continue being able to provide. We just need to see if there's ways to save a little money in doing it. And whether it's having GFL haul them from a dump location that we have, or we take them over to the Tut Hill compost area or whatever, that's what really needs to be investigated. Because we certainly don't want to get bogged down with the DEQ requirements, dumping in our property, compounding an issue out at Volunteer Park, and still be able to provide that service to our residents like so many other communities do.
And I think if you give me a 30-day window and, you know, what is it, 5 weeks, we have that next council meeting, that'll be plenty of time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Two councilmen.
No problem.
Councilmember Kibble?
I'd like you to see if you can glean how much truck traffic you think that GFL thinks would end up being associated with picking up.
Yeah, we could figure that out by how many yards we haul each year.
Yeah.
Roughly, and then you know, each truck is going to haul so much yards, so yeah, we could do that.
Because I mean, if there's a caravan of garbage trucks that are coming through the neighborhood to go to the yard to pick up over there, you know, there's some impact there as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
So do we got a motion to?
Motion to postpone the discussion of the leaves collection by DPW and disposal locations to the 2 meetings out 5 weeks from now in May.
5 weeks in May, yeah.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if we have students in the audience and you guys need to go to school in the morning, we can sign any documentation you have, unless you're just here to watch and just have fun.
Okay.
Cool.
That was very nice of you.
There's sponges.
Just in case, I didn't want you
soaking
to.
Okay.
Future politicians, steer away.
We're moving into new business number 8, consider farmers market expansion. And before we get going on this, this could become an in-depth conversation, so I'd like to remind everyone to treat each other with respect. Mr. Donahue, go ahead and get us started.
No, the agenda note is in the packet. I'm recommending approval of the expansion of the farmers market area. Minimal improvements. I think overall it's a wash, if not a slight savings on people hours devoted by the DPW. Our new farmers market manager is successfully expanding the market, which is a good thing. And we're excited that we're going into this season with more vendors than we started last year. So, and freeing up with this space, the idea of putting a permanent, it's a temporary building, but having a shed and not moving that trailer around. And then positioning the portage on, which is something we tried to do last year. So we just think in the overall benefits of the expanding the farmers market, and actually helps the farmers, or the Pumpkin Fest footprint out as well.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Friesen?
I have a couple questions. Well, first and foremost, my concern is that there's not really much room to expand in that area, simply because, I mean, that's our public parking, and public parking in downtown South Lyon is scarce as it is. There's only a few places you can really park. Ideally, if we're going to expand the farmers market, and especially if our new farmers market manager is expanding to different vendors, I would love to see it moved to either the high school or the middle school, preferably the high school, because then you could still get foot traffic downtown. But that would provide you the opportunity to have more parking, to get food trucks in there, maybe a bounce house, to really bring out the farmers market. Because our farmers market, and this is not any offense to you, but our farmers market for like the last 5 years has been weak, just so weak. Not, no offense to any of the vendors, it's just we don't have vendors. We don't have. When you walk through the farmers market, it's more like walking through a craft show. Like, the point of a farmers market is to be able to go and buy fruits and vegetables, and we're not really getting that. So that was my first thing, was I would love to see the farmers market moved from that area into an area that has a little bit more space, more parking. We can get some food trucks in there and just really make it an event for every Saturday for 27 Saturdays. The other thing I wanted to ask was, how is this going to impact the businesses? How is the expansion going to impact the surrounding businesses? And I don't know if there's anyone can speak to that, but I would like to know whether this would be adversely impacting them or not, how that's going to work.
Well, the DDA discussed this. Those are all business and property owners on the board. And they thought for their businesses, attracting more vendors for the farmers market's a good thing. Now, I would say it does have an impact on Norm, because Norm would not be able to. So Norm is certainly an adjacent business. It's city-owned parking, right? City-owned land right now. It was never laid out for parking because it could not be striped properly with enough lane available to park the cars. So it was inadequate to be brought in with the rest of the parking lot as paved parking.
If it's at all possible, thank you for your explanation. Is it at all possible to have, as a business owner, Norm, if you could speak to? That's up to you,
No,
Mr. Mayor.
that's
I'm
perfectly
asking
fine.
permission.
Norm's taking the time to
Thanks.
come up here and talk. I welcome it.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, please do.
State your name and address, please, Norm.
Norm Foltz. I have the shop in South Lyon. It's adjacent to the alley there, so I just found out that this was going to happen recently.
Try to talk in the mic if you can, just because it does
This
go on
thing
the
over
video.
here where I
It's
can-
better.
Does this baby go up or what? There we go. Don't do much singing these days. So basically, I just found out that this was happening. So I'm going to give you my quick synopsis of what I wrote, and we can speak from there. I ask any questions. So I obviously support the farmers market, and my business has supported the city for almost 40 years. I don't see this proposal, in my opinion, helping the farmers market. I don't see it saving costs. I would say it probably would be some more cost. And it would not help the surrounding businesses, not only mine, because I obviously park there, the restaurant when it's going, which we need help to keep the restaurant going. You know, their employees would park back there at times. The people along the alley, Health Emporium guy, his car's been, I mean, it's, you know, it's not a big usage property. So, and I don't think anyone can dispute the parking area that we're talking about is a very small, the area is very small. I've used it for many, many years without any problems, anything being a problem there. I don't know why suddenly there's a need to use this space for another purpose. You know, in my opinion, if you're going to install an on-site shed and have open access to that area, it seems to provide very, very little. If I don't get the additional vendor space, but I'm sure on paper it's there. But and has anyone ever raised a complaint with the city that the market doesn't have enough space? That's just a question I'm curious of. You know, the area is theoretically 45 by 60. The alleyway is already very narrow there, has multiple utility poles, overhead lines. There's transformers in that lot that would be fenced off. There'd be very little access for anything large to try and get through there. You know, the point is, I guess, in my opinion, is there really a lack of space that this proposal would help and address? You know, if they're going to spend, the city's going to spend money to put new shed and fencing, and there's going to be some maintenance, apparently, with something to watch the shed, keep an eye on it, maintain it, whatever that may take. The shed and opening this area will prevent usage for 338 days a year of this property. Only to be used 27 days a year when the weather is good and it's going strong. Almost a full year, it'll be just no use whatsoever for anything. You know, and just as in general, parking for local businesses is already tight. This will make it worse for any future people besides my customers, my people, and anybody else that might need that extra little bit of parking. So I believe it hurts the surrounding businesses. Can't help them. I don't see any way to help them. And, you know, even the farmers market vendors on that Saturday, they need some room back there. They access what they need to. There's wires running across the alley. They have to park wherever they can squeeze themselves into. It's very tedious and gets very tight back there on those days. I don't believe if you put a fence where it's noted would have any possible access for garbage trucks to make the turn, the restaurant supply trucks. I don't know, the fire department maybe could answer it. Any kind of big fire truck or emergency vehicles would never make that turn. And even the snow plowing equipment, the city's got a pretty big snow plow truck. That's not going through there. It doesn't hardly go through there now where those angles are. So, you know, with already minimal parking during the market time, you know, where would the other people that want to park there? My customers, whoever needs it, you know, where are they going to go? I mean, they're going to have to find something. And, you know, the main thing to me is it takes place 27 days a year. So it hurts, it makes it a non-usable dead area for 338 days. So in my opinion, is this the real problem that needs a solution? And is the solution that this has been proposed really going to create more problem than it tries to solve? I mean, I feel it'd be great to help the businesses, whatever that takes, even in small ways. So any way that we could help these businesses stay in business, you know, it would be a great thing. You know, like I hear that they talked about moving it, and I'm not with moving it or not moving it, but I'm going to say this much. If I'm a person wanting to go in that restaurant and I want to buy that restaurant, and they automatically know all summer, the busiest day of the year when most people may not be working, they can't use that parking lot. They don't own it, I guess, but they can't use it. That restaurant, they're going to be in, you know, I mean, they're going to lose a pile of business by it being tied up there. But, you know, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. The farmers markets are great, you know, and when they're used with what they are. So, you know, I don't, in the area that we're referring to, I don't care which back alley of any business you go back, all our alleys. Drive through any of them and look behind them. They're not aesthetically pleasing, any of them, unfortunately. It's just the way alleys work, in my opinion. And mine, behind my place, surely isn't. You know, with there's lots of power lines at my corners. I mean, it's probably one of the more heavier areas that I think. So, you know, I am curious what the trailer or the shed or what it does or what it houses. I mean, what does it, anyone know what it's for?
Yes, the signs and the flags and things that are adorning the farmer's market.
Okay, so it's,
that kind of thing.
I didn't know if the vendors,
Yeah,
if the manager brought that stuff in or if that was
the
something.
city property.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's a pretty small amount of stuff that it really brings in, correct? Okay.
Well, I mean, it's enough to be trailered back and forth,
But
though.
is it a small utility trailer or?
The trailer that you see
Which we
there
pay
typically.
people overtime on the weekend to bring out.
Well,
so that's a huge cost for us.
Yeah, well, and that's what I guess I address that too by saying I'll personally find you somebody or myself to move that trailer. You know, and like you move it back on Mondays, right? Or is that the normal kind of thing?
I'm not positive.
Okay, I don't know.
I've only been here for a little over 2 months, so I don't know what happens this summertime.
Already working Monday. Now, maybe if they're not on the weekend, I'm sure there's volunteers, or I can say I'll get it moved if it's going a few blocks. It can't be more than a very short thing. But to build a shed and tie that property up for no real purpose, in my opinion, I just don't see it. I mean, I urge the council to deny that request. I think the property should be, you know, used as it's been usage for a long period of time. I mean, I shot some. If you guys want to see them, fine. If you don't, I've said my piece. But I kind of measured it out, and I put a row along there Sunday, and I took pictures. And you will see how short that turn is. And that's you can never make that big overhang without taking that fence right with you if it was there. So if anyone wants pictures, they can see them.
Go ahead and bring the pictures up. Superintendent Bovin, you had something?
We did think about the residents there. One of the issues we have in the wintertime is where do we put the snow? And that's one of the places we thought we could put the snow and pile it up until we could haul it off and dump it. It would give us a lot more space so that we could free up parking spaces for the residents downtown during the wintertime.
Bob, I'm coming to you. Kennedy?
So,
Questions for me?
Yeah, I do. I appreciate the comments that you made about helping the city out, looking at things, making things more aesthetically pleasing and so forth. I think that's very commendable. In that vein, I guess I would look at, maybe the city might be interested in a land swap, that strip of property next to the building that's currently on the corner, and giving you this in return for it, to park your cars there.
Sir, I don't think
and we
that's
could
a-
use that strip that's along 10 Mile Road.
That's not what I'm here for.
Let me finish my piece. That strip along 10 Mile Road for, benches and so forth, if you want to talk about aesthetically pleasing.
I'm not saying that, sir. I'm saying that this area is not, that they want to use is not aesthetically pleasing.
I understand
Like
that. I'm
in the
just
alley.
looking at the fact that we have a city asset here that at this point appears to be solely for the benefit of one resident, that the residents in the city all pay for and are receiving no compensation for. And so I'm looking at, there's a way to compensate. Perhaps we just swap pieces of property.
I don't think you're going apples to apples, so that's not even for this conversation. If that means what I say is not important or not justifiable, then
not at all. It's
that,
what you're
but-
saying is very important. I'm just looking at capitalizing on some of the comments
Well,
you made.
that's just not a feasible package that you're.
Thank you, sir.
Especially not done in that. This quick, simple point, but.
Mr. Donahue, did you have anything to add?
Well, I think it would definitely be an improvement for the area. I know the businesses that on the Downtown Development Authority feel that it's a visual improvement. It would be useful for other events, not only for Pumpkin Fest. So it is not just, and Mike and I talked about snow storage, cleaning that area up. Quite often the cars extend into the alley. Quite often there are cars on other parts of the alley. I have been over there with our ordinance officer many times. I've been over there with the previous police chief. So the cars that are there right now sometimes hang out into the alley, or there are other cars parked in the alley. So the alley with this would not restrict. If that alley itself is always open with this proposed expansion, that itself would be an improvement for truck access.
And I don't know if you know this off the top, but do you know if in the 5-year plan of the farmers market that they plan on being at this location, that they're looking at a possibly different location down the road? And could you speak to that?
Yes, the master plan, the community master plan shows it at McCaddy Park near the rental houses, not at the depot side. So the master plan identifies a future farmers market. There's also the DDA has asked a local landscape architect to look at 2 other options. So we are looking at future options for the farmers market because it is expanding, and we have a very competent farm manager who's coming back for his 2nd year.
I did get a chance to meet him.
And so we do need additional space, and Pumpkin Fest could use that space, and a variety of other uses.
Councilmember Kivel? Sorry.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking, it seems viable to me. If what you've drawn up here is 10 by 10s, is that what those booths are?
Well, we can put 4 more 10 by 10 space booth areas.
Right.
in.
So, I mean, and if Tim, is that his name?
Because we have the shed, we'd like to keep a permanent shed to reduce the 50-some hours of DPW time by that shed, have close access to it. We'd also like to, put the 4 dumpsters that are there. And those dumpsters do occupy spaces all season long. GFL gives us those containers. And those take up parking spaces all year long during the market season. So they could be back in there. And then the Porta-John takes another space.
If you've got four new vendors, I mean, the potential additional foot traffic is real. I mean, unless it's, people that actually their stuff isn't going to be well received by the people that attend, then they won't be there for very long. But hopefully he's got a pretty good eye for what he thinks is a natural fit for the farmer's market. So
I did look into the records. I couldn't find anything where there was an agreement for usage of that, and I do know that it is signed, no parking, and it is city-owned.
Right. Well, that
So
was
that's all I
actually
could
going to
find.
be my next comment was, Norm, love the business that you do. I love your work. I love your work ethic and all that. But this is a city asset that you've been able to kind of co-opt to be able to use for your own general use. And I guess to put it in terms that are pretty much as stark as I can imagine, if you put your vehicles on Andrea's parking lot, does she happen to mention anything about that to you?
I'll try and reiterate a little bit, but unfortunately I was trying to stay on point of where I was at, not Bob kind of jumped to, this is more about Norm and about Norm's cars. Well, they're Norm's customers' cars, and they're your taxpayers' people's cars.
Right.
And
But they don't own the property any more than
no,
the fact that they pay taxes here either, so.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying it's been just a sitting there. I plow the snow on it. They don't get in there. I mean,
I have to say, it's always been the weirdest picture to see all the no parking signs there with all the vehicles that are parked right underneath those signs. That's just,
right, and the signs,
how does that go unrecognized?
Well, no, because it hasn't been an issue. They've let whoever needs to use it for all these years, so it hasn't been an enforcement. I don't feel there should have been any enforcement. It's just been allowed to happen for 30 years or whatever. So, this is about what it's worth to the farmer's market. What this whole agenda is. It's not about Norm. It's not about anything else. In reference to my lot up front, because Mr. Kennedy talked about it, that's my best secure place to keep hundreds of $1,000s worth of value of people safe and secure there. That doesn't happen out back, unfortunately. This isn't trying to be about Norm. This is about common sense of what I see and what I read. Bob brought the Norm picture in there, that Norm's cars look worse than Andrea's when they're full, or the other parking
Well,
lots
I'm
when
not,
they're
actually, my comment about your vehicles had nothing to do with whether they're
No,
an
but I mean,
asset or they look
No,
good
I
or
get it.
any of that.
I get it.
It's that that's not your property to actually co-opt. That's my point. If Andrea saw your vehicles parked on her lot, she'd be
would let me
calling
know.
a tow truck.
She would let me know. And
Yeah.
I would say, absolutely, we'll move them. Sometimes people come in and say, here's my keys. So it happens. I mean, we're awfully busy, which is great.
Mhm.
Everyone's awfully busy. Sometimes, just like with Andrea, I wouldn't tell Andrea, no, absolutely I'm going to leave this car here. It's just a respectful kind of a thing. I'm not disrespectful in the least. Those cars aren't there
I've never known
because-
you to be
No,
disrespectful.
and those cars aren't there because I want them to personally be there. And, I have tried to get rid of some stuff that people come in and say, oh, yeah, I want to fix it. Maybe I'll fix it. I don't have the money right now, blah, blah. And I've been trying to eliminate some of that. That will be helpful. So this won't change my lifestyle. I mean, it just can't. It won't. I can't let it happen. But the agenda to make it better for the farmer's market is what I don't see. Now, I'm not here to reiterate all that because that's Bob's job to give it to you guys how he sees it.
And the market master, I mean,
He's the
and
market
DDA
master.
have decided that
Right.
that would be a benefit, so.
Well, and I'm just saying, if you have to chain link and leave that open, you're going to see that back into there. And I don't see that. And I don't even know that DTE would say it's all right to have them transformers blocked in. I don't know. I mean, I just try to stay on point with what I meant to say.
Your cars would be okay, but if
Them
we had a
cars will
shed.
move that fast. It's
So
just
could
not
the
a
chain.
problem.
Councilmember Friesen, you
They
had
could cut
some-
it.
Well,
They have
but
tools
I'm just
to cut
saying
it.
the fence won't move.
We're not putting a fence up.
Oh, I thought you were putting a fence along there. Okay, that's the way I.
One second.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Ms. Walton, you had something for Mr. Donahue?
Mr. Donahue, you mentioned, we touched on the 5-year plan and the possibility of moving that to Caddy Park in that 5-year
Yes.
plan. Where are we at? What year are we in?
The master plan was adopted in October or November of 2016, so we're coming up to a little over 3 years. And so I think as far as the farmer's market, the DDA is trying to be proactive, and because, you know, we would like to develop, actually see that lot, that property sold to a developer. And so no matter what happens, the market eventually will move. And if it's as shown in the master plan, which I think is a very nice plan within the master plan, the Downtown Development Authority would like to keep it a little closer to downtown.
So we would,
so at a different location.
So we would be looking at building a shed for 1 or 2 years.
It's a temporary. It's a no foundation. It can be moved with a high-low.
Okay.
Councilmember Parisian, thank you for your patience.
No problem.
I got a question.
I have a couple questions. So my first one is, just as a practical matter, if we're not planning on keeping the farmer's market where it currently is, I said it at the beginning, I'm a huge advocate of moving it. I just don't think that, it makes no sense to me that we're going to use our downtown parking, which is scarce, to put for the farmer's market. And when I walked through every Saturday last year, there was a lot of empty space. So if you have 4 new vendors, it seemed like you could fit those 4 new vendors in and then some. But see, that's the thing, is I don't know the list of vendors. I don't know how many we have this year, but just from my past experience, I would walk through there and I'd be like, okay, fine, I guess.
When people sign up, they want their same location. So
Okay.
literally the whole lot is split up into 20 and 10-foot wide spaces.
But when you walk in, it's like boom, 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 all these stalls, and then you turn and there's nothing. Like there's this whole chunk of space where there's like maybe 1 stall or a guy
Every week
playing a
is
guitar.
different. This year we have more than we started with last year. And so this year there's been a consistent, we have Tim returning, and who's been far more professional, and I wasn't here in the past, so I can't say.
Yeah.
I do know I was told by the other vendors that they weren't happy with one of the vendors serving as the manager for the 2 years prior.
Ooh.
There was a lady from the community that did a wonderful job
Okay.
up until about 2 years before I came. Then one of the vendors, and there were issues with one of the vendors managing it. So it hasn't had professional management
Yes.
until last year, and now we're getting this person back. So I think his sponsorships are up, his prepaid vendors are up from last year, and he does feel he can fit in 4 more vendors.
Okay, so understanding that we didn't have professional management before, it takes a while to build our farmer's market up. And again, like it's going to take time, and I completely am cognizant of that. My only thing is, I walk through downtown Farmington, or I walk through downtown Northville, and I'm jealous. And I'm like, well, wait a second, they got food trucks galore, and they've got all this, fruit vendors and vegetable vendors and people selling baked goods. It's really different. Not that I'm trying to compare South Lyon, but in this case I am, because it's a little frustrating to me that we're going to use our South Lyon parking for an event that could be so much more. So why?
Well, that is the goal, is to improve it, and
Right.
we will see improvements. And in Farmington, I was involved in the planning of their farmers market,
Well
ironically.
done.
And so that is in a city parking lot.
It is, but
So-
it's like a pavilion though. So there's like
Yeah.
city parking. but
Well, yeah,
then
they have
there's,
a
like,
permanent
pavilion.
location like we could have at the McCaddy Park.
We don't have that luxury, but
Right.
aside from that, we do have other luxuries such as the middle school, the high school, or you could use McCaddy Park.
I think that in our statewide Michigan Downtown Association, I would say that while I was at Oakland County, 99%, if not 100% of the downtown development authorities want that farmer's market downtown, and so do the
And
businesses.
I get that because you want the foot traffic downtown, but if you
So
still had
the
it,
minor use of a parking lot from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays is very minimal impact to the businesses.
So I guess, okay, my disagreement is simply that I don't want to spend additional city funds to leave the farmer's market in an area where it's just going to eventually be moved anyways. So we're going to spend funds to change this land, and then we're going to move it and spend more funds to move it.
The sponsorships and the use of the lot, pretty much things are sold out. It's got that location for this year. I mean, the market opens up in 2 weeks.
Right.
So that we could not remove, we couldn't.
But say we wanted
And
to
I
bring...
don't think we would want to until we find a permanent home. The whole goal is to find a permanent home.
Which is a great goal to have, but the whole thing too is if we wanted to expand it and have 15 additional vendors. You're not going to get it in that space. So if this new farmers market manager does an excellent job, which I'm sure he will, and is able to expand it, you're not going to expand it by too many additional spaces if you move the fence. Do you know what I'm saying? So it would behoove us to move to the high school or the middle school or McCaddy or however.
Well, eventually, and that shed can be moved, sure. But we can maximize the city-owned property by going into this expansion area. We can maximize all that city property, and we cannot. And not only are we lose space for the trash receptacles, we lose space for the porta-john, and those block off. So we can
this dead tree. We could probably pull that out. Make
it's
some
only
more space.
it's a tree that hasn't bloomed yet. I mean, that's spring in Michigan.
I love your perspective.
It's a fruit tree. It will bloom. It blooms every year.
Okay.
So it is all we have to expand this year, and I would say until there's money to realize. I mean, who's going to spend the money in McCaddy Park to create a permanent home for the market? I think the private sector, someone will eventually. If it's someone looking at Draft Street now, if it's someone that looks at Draft Street, I've already had 3 developers say, how much does the parking lot cost?
Okay.
Now, if we want to realize our master plan, our city master plan, adopted by City Council, shows a building from Lake Street all the way down to Liberty Street. So we are aggressively marketing the master plan, and someday the goal is to have a building where that parking lot is. No question. So I think the farmer's market is going to be bumped out by a new building or a permanent home somewhere. I mean, I think right now, I mean, it's a location that the DDA and it's worked, and now it's able to be maximized, and that's the whole reason we're here tonight. It's temporary. Probably another 2 or 3 years.
I see it. I see what you're saying. I don't agree with the practicality of it at the moment because it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to spend money on something that you're eventually going to move on anyways. And for me personally, I would love to see it where if you had it at the high school, you could still get foot traffic downtown. People would still be parking downtown and walking on beautiful days to go to the
I think most of the vendors would, I mean, they prefer that location, so I would beg to differ.
But I mean, it's not really...
A farmer's market in downtowns... I mean, there are the essentials. I think if you had the essentials, you would want a theater. We are so lucky to have a theater and people that have invested in it. Right. We have a wonderful bakery. We have a coffee shop under new ownership. We have all these essentials. A farmer's market is really one of those essentials. And to have it downtown on a city parking lot is basically the basic script for all farmers markets. I mean, if you go to Howell, it's right there. And so it's done everywhere because the hours itself minimize its impact.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I got one more comment. Yep. So again, if you go to all these communities, though, they have, I mean, a bustling market, and they have food trucks, and it's just a fun event. They got people, I guess we have a guitarist playing as well, but like they make it a bigger event, and I think we should be more aggressive about it. We should
I can assure you we are as aggressive as we can be. And so you will see improvements this year. It doesn't happen overnight. We're going from mismanagement for 2 years to improvements last year to more improvements this year. And so I think the location and the city property gives us the expansion that we need.
Councilmember Kurtzwell?
I'd like to address a couple of the points that was raised by Mr. Foltz, and his comment is that this is a full year, that you can't use it beyond, that parking lot beyond the 27 weeks. Explain what he is saying about that.
Well, the farmer's market is 27 weeks.
Okay.
And so, I mean, certainly there's the rest of the year. The other events take place all year that could use it. Keeping the shed there without using DPW time. It doesn't meet parking standards, or it would have been part of the parking lot if it met parking standards. That's why it's zoned no parking. It's a liability issue with the city. To keep cars out of there, it's clearly marked no parking. And it would have been brought into the rest of the parking lot design if it was big enough.
So you're looking at using that space for other uses other than a farmer's market?
Only uses for events and snow storage. Correct.
I personally, I like farmers markets. That's where I do all my shopping in the summertime. And I am everywhere. I've probably been to every farmer's market, including Eastern Market. I go out there a lot too. So I'm a real fan of farmer markets. I think that you need an opportunity to try something new. I'm a real firm believer that old formulas in the city haven't necessarily worked. And so if there's a new formula out there, I'm willing to take a look at it. I'm open to that. I don't have too much of a problem with the proposal. However, I would like to be able to reevaluate it.
Absolutely.
Because I clearly would be making trips down there. And if the attendance falls off in August, like a lot of markets do, and then they pick up again in September, if it's falling off and the enlarged space isn't necessarily being used, and there's a little waste there, then I may reconsider next year. But I'd like to have an opportunity to reevaluate next year, but give you an opportunity. You're selling some goods. Let's see if you can put something behind the sale.
I agree. It should be evaluated. Absolutely.
Maggie, good comments. I don't want to be sitting here 6 months from now and Bob Donahue be standing here in front of me saying, I came to you, I told you it was going to be full, you're supposed to be up here doing what's best for the city, and you handcuffed me. Okay? I can't have that. So I'm kind of with you that it is city property. Bob's here with the support of the downtown development people saying they need it for the farmers market. And, I'm going to have to support that and just being that's the best interest for the city.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying, though, is if that is true and we are going to aggressively expand, just adding 2 more stalls in this particular spot isn't going to cut it. So move it.
And I would support that too. I guess where I kind of, the tipping point for me is, and I'd like to talk to the guy from the farmer's market too. I think I'm supposed to meet him next Saturday. But if we landlock them by not giving them this here and we're here at the end of the month, maybe that chases people off. I don't know. I feel like it's going back to certain things we were talking about earlier this evening. We're trying to welcome people here. But at the same time, we still need to support our businesses that are here. In this situation, in the best interest of the city, I think we should, at least I'm going to go with Donahue here and support this. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to it.
I'm going to make the motion that to approve the expansion of the farmers market into the area adjacent to the west boundary of the existing farmers market parking lot on city-owned property and associated minimal improvements by the DPW other than shed, which will be purchased at DDA's expense to accommodate the 2018 market season beginning May 5th and future farmers market seasons, and to further accommodate Pumpkin Fest activities.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I'm sorry, Bob, I can't. Sorry. No.
Motion passes. I'll tell you what, at this time, I would entertain a 5-minute recess before we go into the rest of the agenda. Would anyone be up for that?
Yeah.
I move for a recess for 5 minutes.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's not sliding your way.
Were these in the envelope?
You know what, no, I think
Oh,
these are
okay.
separate, but you can, do you want to take this envelope?
No.
Because there was only 6.
That's from the guy that's selling that
Oh.
property.
I'll just
Yeah,
borrow,
no,
I'll borrow Dan's, I'll make a copy of his, so I'll give Glenn mine, I'll make a copy of Dan's. Take his. I just need to stand up and stretch. A lot of sitting.
Oh, it never is. It really is, it's really just about. It should be proved out pretty quickly, I mean. I think it should be parking.
How are you doing, Rose?
Good, how are you? Well, especially if it's not going to be there in the next couple of years anyways, why are we spending money that we don't necessarily need to?
All part of that plan.
Parking. But we don't have any parking. We have parking behind Lake Street and then side parking.
Get the approval of the guy that wants to build the, across the parking lot that, where the Veterans Rock is, through the bakery and everything else. There's 50 spots going behind that building, right across the street.
Do you know the timeline for that?
Talk about, it's that GD.
He's on DDA.
He's on DDA, okay. Yeah, but I mean, that's his plan. I don't know where it stands timing-wise.
Oh,
Sandra.
okay, thank you.
I did speak with her today.
Good.
She said that this
We got a quote from her. I got an email that went to Ron.
How do we ask who's parking?
Oh, okay.
Well, we should ask.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is we've been using those other 2 people. He had that old quote because the other 2, just like within the last couple months, they told Ron, we don't want it no more. So.
and here's the
I don't know if they're going to.
But right now,
Okay.
it's just right.
Yeah, because I wrote it down. I want to go take a look at it. So, okay. Me and I'll take Ron and myself and go over there tomorrow and take a look at it, take some pics and everything.
Okay.
Like, that's so cool.
I want the food trucks.
I know. Perfect idea.
Wait.
We should have that. I don't know why we're not here. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to see this. Yeah, it's over. Well, this is not the stuff I gotta learn is this the city's responsibility? Because there's some private ones that go through that are not ours. Is it?
First blush, it's shoddy construction.
I'll email
Well,
you.
that's.
But they fail.
Oh, they do. They do.
The pilings.
Well, but there's some like up north of here that there are trails that go to the trail or the rail trail, and if it's a trail that goes to it, it's not our responsibility. So that's what I got to find out.
Yeah.
But this sounds like it's part of the
Where
trail.
they are, so it's fine.
We're gonna find out.
Thank you for this.
In that location, stay right the hell out of it.
I'm trying to figure out.
Oh, that rail trail thing.
What about it?
Oh, where they got that. But that's I'm trying to think is that the actual
Megan,
rail
come
trail
here for a
itself, or
moment,
is
if you
that
don't
one
mind.
that leads up to the rail trail?
If you were here speaking on public comment,
That
would you be able, like, that's, do you think that's good enough? Want it to be bigger? I got over there.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Is this a lead up to the trail, or is this part of the trail? I think it's a lead up to it.
Yeah. I don't think they're responsible at all. I think they should have to pay. Just
Now,
like-
would the
just
city,
like-
here's the question we could bring to them. Would the city be willing to do it, pay for it, and then they pay us a special assessment? No. Not for that amount of money?
There's a very similar bridge, very similar length. perhaps
Up
longer,
north of here, right?
At Trotter's
Yep.
Point, from Equestrian all the way to Pontiac Trail. My HOA is to keep that thing clear and to repair it.
Huh. So that's what I gotta find out. Because I personally, just looking at it, how narrow it is, I don't think it's part of the rail trail.
I don't think so. I think it was put in as cheaply as possible by the developer of that subdivision. That's what you'll
Well, I'll find out tomorrow. We'll walk out
The
there.
only reason I didn't chime in with that was the gentleman was very sincere. He was trying to offer something that he thought was doable. But
Yeah, we'll have to address them.
it's not, I don't think it's the city's responsibility.
I agree.
day. At the end of the day, you can only be so nice. My philosophy always.
This guy just emailed me about
Hey, Chief.
entrance to Colonial Acres. He wants me to replace it. He said it's falling apart. So,
Yes.
They don't currently have one. Could these people?
I don't even know if that's private. See, again, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's what. I'm part of the. This is part of my learning experience. So my first question is that the city's?
You guys know.
I know. Ronald Gold. They've been calling us for years.
That's all private roads.
Right, but the entrance
If
right
they
where
had a liquor license
is
and
the
lost
approach
it?
ours or no? Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that so?
Ronald Brock will know. He knows everything.
County road, county right of way.
So maybe
County
it's a
right
county.
away goes right
Maybe
away.
it's
assumed that they
but
would be
again,
able to
if it's
provide
a
you
major
with
street, it's
probably
our
have an
responsibility. It's in the
Ask
city.
MLTC, the state.
Yeah, but again, we still have major streets that we take care of, and that's part of it. So
Yeah, I guess it would be easier for
Right.
the city to have that information offhand. It would be easier for us to have that. But I was thinking along the lines of, okay, if you have a liquor license and you lost it.
on this, are you staying for the whole thing? You
Hey,
gonna
I
come
want,
back?
you know,
Because these
I
two
wanna
are
do
after
X, Y, and Z.
after the closed
I
session.
could just call up and find out that information.
You know what this is?
Hey,
I know exactly what this
individual
is.
would like to get a liquor license. He's
Yeah,
flying through the
because
state, he's looking through the city
Brock
codes.
calls it. He goes, hey, Lynn's coming tomorrow morning to bring cones back to the DPW and talk to the guys.
That's true too, but that's the loophole, right?
She here? No.
It's not in the best
She
interest
didn't.
of the city.
I told her what she did. Me and Beeson were in
How do you feel about
hotel.
No,
I
that's
know who she was, so I went and sat down, and Ron's
how do you feel
talking to
about
her,
the
and he asked her, he goes, "Why don't you go with Mike to DPW?" She goes, "No." So when he came back to the table and said that, I said, "She's not coming back."
This thing we just did tonight?
I get it. I mean, I'm putting up 2 bids every week plus
What? Well, like how? Like I gotta get a drink of water.
You're sorry, Chief. I'll look into it. I'll touch base with Tim. See what it is. I see.
Putting it in escrow. She's years and years and years of church. Or
Well, you would have been out.
I pulled liquor license ordinances for a bunch of other communities, and it depends. Like, some communities are very stringent, and some communities it's like a one-pager. And they have regulations, but they're not as much as we are proposing. So, they did. Yeah. I'm gonna sit down with Tim and go over it, and we'll see. But I appreciate your insight and your feedback. I do.
She shouldn't have done the lease with clean.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard because South Lyon doesn't have any issues, knock on wood. So all it takes, I guess, is one time, though.
I'm really worried about stuff So the redecorating, I do have windows on.
She's got,
The group is closed. The last word was, like deer. Not in public, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, keep catching up. Cable TV when
He's a reasonable guy. He's working his angles, you know. So.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Chief.
That would be wonderful. He's not worried about that.
He was like,
In fact, I ran into your dad like the next day.
One of the things I love about him.
Well, I know, not at all.
It's about the same square footage.
So I'm giving you my copy, because I'll just get a copy from Dan.
Okay, this is about that.
The guy with the job. Said he wants to sell the property or he'll
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, Mr. Allen, yeah. His son and my kids went to school together. Like, was it Justin Aaron Allen? Justin? Oh, Zach Allen. That's right. Yeah, that's his name. Yeah. You know, the mom is over at the post office. Oh, yeah.
South
Yeah.
I don't think mine was probably as wild as yours, but.
Yeah. Well, Zach was certainly.
Really, Bob?
A big taxpayer of the city of South Lyon. Oh, boy.
Too late now. Too late now.
They're probably feeling the noise, wants us to fix it.
We need to make a motion to come back in from recess.
I move that we re-adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I have some scribbles over here, and I just want to make sure we're at the right spot. I believe we are moving 9 and 10 past the closed session, so right now we should be on the budget. Does that look right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So with that, we will talk budget.
I'm going to make my, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to make my budget comments extremely brief. I'll save them for 2 weeks from now. The one thing that I did want to bring up are just two issues, is that at the budget meeting, I did provide a draft of a general fund balance policy and would like to know if council wants to pursue that. If you do, then we can start working on it at the next couple meetings. It's a simple policy. It's not real complicated. Everything that Brian talked about is in the policy. It's just sitting down and working out some numbers. So I think Brian was right. It's a good practice to have. I think it's a good check to have when that fund balance is moving up and down. But that's just me. That's just my my opinion. So I kind of wanted to get a read from council whether they're interested in moving forward, or do we put a stopgap to it tonight? And the second issue that I would like to address is regarding budget. And this is because I have seen that the budget this season has gone extremely well. And it's gone well because we have somebody that is working on the budget full-time. And Lori has just done a great job, and teaming up with Brian, I think, has been a good combination. I would just like to toss out to council that many cities have what is called a financial director, and that individual is predominantly responsible for gathering the data and the information for the budget. And I would like to propose at some point that council consider having a financial director as a full-time position, and maybe not right now, but maybe by October as we move into the next budget. It just seems that we had a great success. We tried a different formula. The formula worked, and I think that the budget is moving along fine, but you have 2 more years. You have capital improvement. You have a lot of things to keep this individual busy 365 days of the year working on planning and budget issues rather than paying bills. So I would like to suggest that we take the next step, move the city forward. There are several reasons why I think this is an interesting position to move forward with. I've had also an opportunity to talk with other council members that I know in other cities, and the city manager person is not an individual that comes to the table with a lot of finance. I think that the prior Rod Cook probably had the most experience in budgeting, but he was extremely unique in his skill set. That is not a skill set that is predominant or is developed with other city managers throughout the area. So I think that other city managers that we have had the skill set has not necessarily been there, that there's been another person around them that has had the skill set that has helped them along in the budgeting process. So I think what it does is it provides stability, is that if you do have an issue with a city manager where they're out for a period of time, at least you don't lose your budget, at least you don't lose your financial planning, which really seems to be a problem that the city has had, I think, for maybe 5 or 6 years. Every time you change city managers, it takes about a year for that individual to get on board, understand what the budget is, get involved in the budget. And I just think that you have better control of your budget if you have a full-time person here who is working on the budget and dealing with it with the department heads throughout the year. So that's my suggestion, that's my observation from being involved in several budget seasons and realizing that maybe a change in what the city's doing would be beneficial, and maybe we could move the city forward with a lot better planning than what we've had in the past. So those are my comments on the budget tonight. The last one, excuse me, I have one more, and that is to thank Lori Mosier and Brian for just a phenomenal commitment that they've made to the budget this season. And every question I've had has been answered. They've been very attentive to detail, and I just want to thank them. And I think that the attention to the budget this year is partly the reason that the budget process is moving as well as it is. It's that full-time commitment, and I think that is beginning to tell me that that's probably where that formula is to move the city forward in financial planning. So those are my comments. They're just mine. So.
Anyone got anything else? Chief?
Sure, I'll try to make it brief too. Friday was 420, and nationwide that was, no, I'm not going the marijuana route. Was 420, that was a planned day for many school walkouts and anti-violence rallies. I had consulted with Principal Scaling at South Lyon High School. He was not aware of any planned events for South Lyon High School. I assured him that we would be there to assist should anything develop, and as far as we know, nothing did at the high school. I'd also been in communication during the week with a young lady by the name of Gretchen Asher, a South Lyon East High School student. She helped organize at First United Methodist Church in the city an anti-violence rally.
Just really quick, did you have details? Was that after school hours at the church?
Yes, the church rally was planned for 3 to 5. She was anticipating 200 to 300 or more people, expected students from both high schools and both middle schools.
Okay.
We had 3 or 4 police personnel there, including myself, just to keep the peace and do a little bit of PR work. And as it turned out, there was far less attendance than was anticipated, but there were no problems. Saturday was the pint-sized marathon. Again, several officers worked that. No problems that we were aware of. There was some concern about potential conflicts with ongoing cleanups of the Yerkes Drain and Historic Village. None of those conflicts materialized. We've taken some steps to minimize those, and everything worked out well. And I think I'll let it go at that.
Okay, thanks.
I got just 2 little things to add to the manager stuff. Arbor Day is this Friday, just to let everybody know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's in front of the Catholic Church. We're planting another tree there. They requested another one. If you want to, at 9:45, the Father's going to come out and bless the tree in the morning, so there'll be kind of a double arbor time, so we'll get some pictures for both. And the other thing, just wanted to thank the mill for their cleanup day for the creeks and everything on Saturday. And what we did is we had a storm last week for the kids cleanup day, so they decided to switch it to this week. So just thank the kids for doing that as well.
Right.
Could I ask, Mike, are we still engaged in the Tree City thing?
Yes,
qualifying
we are.
in it?
Yep.
All right, good.
Yep.
That's important to us.
I had to post it in the paper We do the planting of the trees, and then we have to spend, I think it's $21,500 a year for tree trimming and stuff like that, yep. And we have to turn all that in.
That's driven by population or something, isn't it? There's formulaic thing, I thought.
I believe so.
Yeah, right.
I believe so, yep.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else have anything for the manager's report? Okay, great. Move on to council comments. Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start off by saying everybody needs to be aware of Water Purity Week, where there's a display inside the doorway, which is locked right now, but in City Hall here for purity water and the bottles, okay? Everybody can get a new bottle. And this is headed up by Sue Martin, who's one of the members of the Wellhead Protection Committee, along with Larry Ledbetter and Bob Martin, former DPW director, and Doug Moore, and a couple other people that are on that I know. And they all work very hard and put in a long meeting, whenever they do, every second or third month here in City Hall in one of the auxiliary rooms. Just be aware of it, and something to mention. And also, what Mike said about the cleanup, I was involved in a limited extent, okay? I supplied some equipment and gear that I had, okay? I got to meet Dave Bell, this fellow that's the new union the top guy in the Tube Mills Union. I'd never met the man before, and we talked quite a bit, and we'll be talking more in the future. I rode with Sue Martin under the way Larry split the groups up, okay, and the first spot we tackled was Lyon Drain number 2 as it went under the bike path over by Clark Crossing. When it went through Clark Crossing on the way up to 9 Mile. It had never been touched. I pointed it out to him last year, and we'd missed that for years, okay? And we got that, okay? And we also got the best cleanup job on the reservoir, or the turnover from the Oakland County Drain Commission into the Washtenaw, or Oakland County Road Commission out there at the end of 9 Mile, or out the end of the bike path on Dixboro. We got the best cleanup job that I've ever done out there at any time, with the proper rakes and tools, and we had a superstar mother with us out there who I've never seen before. And I always provide some gloves for ladies, okay, insulated gloves, so they can really work if they want to. And I helped her put those on, and man, did she go to town. This lady went underneath over the fences and underneath the brush and around and dipped in to get man-made stuff out of the drink. And she was just fantastic, okay, and I believe she was a mother. I don't know who the lady was, but I certainly welcome her to come back and help us out again. And with that, I'll say we had a good week, okay? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carl. Councilmember Kennedy.
Okay. Tonight, I just want to highlight some of the cooperation and support that's been taking place between various businesses within our community. In recent weeks, the Coral Sash has had a few fashion shows, and a number of other South Lyon businesses have pitched in to help and participate. This includes Divine Yoga, The Lemon Tree, Two Dolls Bakery, South Lyon Flowers and Gifts, Greener Pastures Market, The Bronze Goddess, ABC Yoga, Amy Moore Photography, Gateway Dental, and Co-Rudder Salon. In addition, a few weeks ago, the venue held a fashion show at the South Lyon Hotel, and Co-Rudder Salon again had stylists there helping out as well. Additionally, the Co-Rudder Salon serves as a location for local artisans to display their creations in their shop, and they're always looking for additional artists to participate. These are just a few examples of the businesses helping each other to succeed in building a stronger business community here in South Lyon. So please get out and support our local businesses. I also want to mention that the South Lyon East High School Drama Department is presenting Mary Poppins this week. It's Thursday through Saturday at 7 p.m. with a 2 p.m. matinee performance on both Saturday and Sunday. Tickets are available at the Java House Cafe and the South Lyon Center for Active Adults, as well as online at southlyoneastdrama.com. So make it a night out and enjoy the performance of our high schoolers. And on that, have a good evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Walton.
Thank you. I have a couple of thank yous I want to extend to the DPW for putting up the new parking sign on the parking lot on Dorothy Street. I did notice that as I was running by one day. I also want to thank you for opening the bathrooms at McCaddy Park. It's going to make a huge difference for everyone that uses that park, the runners on the rail trail, the walkers, the children playing there. Made a huge difference for the run on Saturday during the Pint-Sized Marathon, so thank you for that. Fire Department, I wanted to say thank you also for sending a truck over on Saturday during the Pint-Sized Marathon. That was a nice surprise I didn't expect, and I did make sure to say hello to everyone that was there. To the police, I want to say thank you for your extra support during the run and the street crossing, but also for being on call during the national walkouts and the anti-violence rally. It's important to know that you were there for us. The city, the Historical Society, the 2 Mill working nicely with Footprint Fitness to share the area during the cleanups and also just to get those cleanups done. It's very important and everything turned out great. It looks wonderful. The depot area and gardens are always wonderful to look at and beautiful. The people that ran the Pint-Sized Marathon, including Councilmember Parisian, it was nice to see you out there on the path. So thank you everyone that came. And congratulations to the new owners at the Corner Cafe. I know that one of the owners is a runner, so I'm looking forward to her being runner friendly as we run through town and need somewhere to stop. So with that, I'm going to tell everyone have a great night.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton.
Thank you.
Councilmember Parisian.
I just wanted to say, don't forget Ladies' Night Out, May 11th. Support the local businesses. And to piggyback off of Councilwoman Walton as well, the Pint-Sized Marathon was a success. Thank you to all the volunteers, all the runners. Every year, it just keeps getting better and better, and it's one of my favorite races. So thank you to everybody out there.
Nice marathon.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Yes, I'm going to start with a quick question. Lisa, we got the ethics ordinance in the mail, and who directed that be mailed out? I was just curious.
Chief Collins?
What I wanted to do is, I did get some phone calls from some employees that were a little bit concerned about the ordinance being mailed out, and I kind of, and here is the approach that I think I'm just going to say, is I think it's good to be fair to our employees, and the ethics code basically is on the list of subjects to be discussed at the workplace seminar that we're supposed to be having. And I kind of thought, maybe what we should have done is discuss that ordinance at the seminar with the employees, give the employees an opportunity to read the ethics ordinance, ask questions about the ethics ordinance, and then ask them to sign an acknowledgement. I think that's a more friendly employee sort of way to approach employees, particularly when you're presenting something to them that they've never seen before and clearly could potentially have a consequence as to their employment status here in the city. So I would only say that we need to think about our employees, put them first, put their education of ordinances, make that a priority, and then ask them to sign documents after they have had an opportunity to understand it and ask questions. Furthermore, the ordinance as it came to me and was mailed along, it had a requested disclosure of financial information. I received a phone call from an individual over the weekend who sits on a commission that was a little bit concerned about the information being asked. I did explain to the individual that I don't believe that it's mandatory that financial information be disclosed. I found it invasive. It's not that I don't have a problem answering the questions. What I have a problem is government asking the questions. So I would not encourage anybody to sign it, fill out those financial questions if they don't have to. And I reminded the individual that if you do fill it out, it's probably FOIable, so that information would become public if somebody wanted to FOIA it. So on that, I'm going to move forward. I'd like to thank the members of the Four Seasons Garden Club who were out this weekend assisting in the various garden projects in the city. The Four Seasons Garden Club I am a member of. It's a fabulous service organization that part of its commitment is to beautify places of the elderly and municipalities, and I think we do a great job in doing that. Please support the longevity run. It is for a really, really good cause. It's very, very important, and early detection of lung disease is critical to one's survival. One of my favorites in town is the Lyon Theater, and there is a new superhero movie that is coming out, and hopefully, I think it's this weekend, and hopefully the Lyon Theater will be showing it. So please support the Lyon Theater. It is just a fabulous, fabulous little jewel to have in the city. So good night, everyone. Thank you for inviting all of us into your home this evening, and we'll see you at the next City Council meeting. Have a good week.
Thank you. Councilmember Kibble?
There's just a couple of little things. I had asked Rob if you could remember when Mike Kennedy was talking about that little house over in McHattie Park, and he wanted to do a test burn, and there was some concern about whether or not that was asbestos tile or shingles on the sides. So I was hoping that we could end up determining what the situation was with that. If the fire department can end up getting a test burn out of that, that would be terrific. If not, I would still like us to do whatever we need to do to get the house torn down so we can take it off of the tax rolls. I mean, that thing hasn't served us. It's been nothing but costing us to sit there idle. So, actually, speaking of Mike Kennedy, I wanted to pass along my congratulations again for his becoming the fire chief of Ann Arbor. I mean, that's quite a feather. Yep. So I'm real happy for him and proud of the fact that he attained what I think had been a long-term aspiration for him. And at our last meeting, there was some controversial decision-making about whether or not you needed to, the mayor needed to actually weigh in on on a vote. And although I don't know what Roberts has to say about it, but I know our charter says that you need to speak to it, yep. So that you do need to vote. So
thank you, Glenn.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear for everybody. Outside of that, I think this meeting is on plenty long enough, and we still have business. So yep. I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Kivel. I will also keep it quick. Quick reminder to everyone, we still need people on boards and commissions. We'd like to see some more people get involved. I think we might have got a couple applications in. So please, if you're on the fence about it, we'd love to see you involved with our boards and commissions. Stopped in at KV Sports this week in their new location. If you haven't been in there yet, please do. George and the team have got a great setup in there, and hopefully they'll be there for a long time. Very cool. I would suggest going and checking them out if you haven't. And then I wanted to show everyone this awesome thing I got from the second graders at Salem last week that I went and saw on Friday. Everyone wrote a cool little story and drew a picture, and we had a great time talking out there. Always a great time talking with the second graders. And I also had a quick lunch out at our Center for Active Adults and speaking to our friends over there, and I want to thank them for their time and coming out and having their voices heard. So with that, we'll look to go into closed session. Tim, do you just need me to read this verbatim?
Whoever makes the motion should.
Okay.
You gonna go out?
Well, I'll make the motion that we go to closed session pursuant to Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.268B, or H, I'm sorry, to consider and discuss written attorney-client privilege communication on legal issues relating to a personnel matter, which is exempt from disclosure under MCL 15.243 1G.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Gotta have a roll call.
Gotta have a roll
Okay.
call.
Oh, yeah, that's
Thank
right.
you.
Kibble?
You can't expect us to remember it every time. Yes.
Friesian?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Walton?
Yes.
Kurzweil?
Yes.
How's
Yes.
Night.
Mr. Mayor, can we go have a little break here, another little
You
break?
lucky.
Are you gonna turn the microphones off?
Also, on that point, so the microphones,
They're still